This is Jason Anderson, Chairman of Killeen Town Council, and we are calling this regular Town Council meeting to order. It is currently 7 p.m. on Tuesday, January 14th, 2025. At this time, we will move on to item 2 on the agenda, which is the prayer, and we have Pastor Yana Cruz Pagan here.
Let us pray. God, we thank you for this evening, for the full moon, for the crisp air. And we just ask that you would order this meeting, order our lives, and thank you so much for the community leaders and the people that are here and the people online. We just ask for your blessings. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For roll call purposes, all council members are in attendance. Moving on in the agenda, I will entertain a motion to adopt the minutes from previous meetings. 5A, a special town council meeting December 3rd, 2024, and 5B, which is regular town council meeting December 10th, 2024. Can I get a motion to adopt these?
I'll
So
make that
moved.
motion.
Motion was made by Mr. Catula, seconded by Ms. Barclay. Discussion, corrections, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on in the agenda. Next item up. Yes.
Add an item to the agenda.
Okay.
We'll call it, under new business. It's will be discussion and action regarding implementation of decisions made by boards and commissions.
Second.
Okay. Yep. So we've got a motion to add an item, which would be 15A, discussion and action. We'll go with what Mr. Grandelski said, because I was jotting my notes too fast. We got a motion and a second. Discussion?
Excuse me, Frankston? I
Yes?
didn't hear what Ed said.
Okay. Oh,
Thank you.
Can you repeat it?
Yes.
yes, please.
Discussion and action regarding implementation of decisions made by boards and commissions.
Thank you.
Yep. So we got a motion and I believe there was a second by Ms. Murphy to add this item to the agenda, which would come in at 15A, new business. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. While we are in adding items to the agenda, I will entertain a motion to add an item, and this one would be added in at, we will call it before 10A, before we get into appointments to boards and commissions, and this would be discussion regarding terms of planning and zoning members, planning and zoning commission members.
Did you make the motion or you need a motion?
I was asking for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion was made by Ms. Murphy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I believe Mr. Grandelski was a second. Discussion? Just so everyone knows, there's some issues that came up with the terms of planning and zoning commission members. Myself and the town manager have had discussion regarding it. She's reached out to the town attorney. So at that point, we can go over that before we get into making our appointments to planning and zoning. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. We will now move on in the agenda. Back to item 6A, proclamation recognizing January 2025 as National Stalker Awareness Month. Ms. Wakefield, if you could.
Proclamation recognizing January 2025 as National Stalking Awareness Month. Whereas stalking is a serious and widespread issue that affects individuals of all genders, ages, races, ethnicities, and backgrounds, with an estimated 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men experiencing stalking in their lifetimes. And whereas stalking is a crime that undermines personal safety and security, often causing victims significant emotional distress, physical harm, and financial burden, and can escalate to more severe violence, including homicide. And whereas stalkers often use a wide range of tactics to intimidate, monitor, and control their victims, including physical surveillance, unwanted communication, cyber stalking, and misuse of technology. And whereas raising public awareness about stalking is vital to helping individuals and communities recognize and respond to stalking behaviors, support victims, and hold offenders accountable. And whereas National Stalking Awareness Month provides an opportunity for individuals, organizations, and communities to educate themselves and others about stalking, advocate for stronger protective measures, and promote resources available for victims. And whereas we as a community stand united in our commitment to preventing stalking, supporting survivors, and working together to foster an environment where everyone feels safe and respected. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Town Council of the Town of Killingley that January 2025 be publicly recognized as National Stalking Awareness Month, and urge all residents to increase their awareness of stalking, learn about warning signs, and support efforts to prevent and respond to stalking in our community. Killingley Town Council, Jason Anderson, Chairman, dated at Killingley, Connecticut, this 14th day of January 2025.
Thank you, Ms. Wakefield. We'll now move on to item 6B, which is a proclamation recognizing January 2025 as National Human Traffic Prevention Month. Whereas human trafficking is a grave violation of human rights that involves the exploitation of individuals through force, fraud, or coercion for the purposes of forced labor, sexual exploitation, and other forms of modern-day slavery. And whereas an estimated 27.6 million people worldwide, including men, women, and children, are victims of human trafficking, with cases occurring in the communities across the United States. And whereas human trafficking inflicts profound physical, emotional, and psychological harm on its victims, leaving lasting scars on individuals, families, and communities. And whereas efforts to combat human trafficking require collaboration among federal, state, and local governments, non-governmental organizations, law enforcement, and community members. And whereas raising public awareness about the signs of human trafficking and promoting available resources are crucial steps in preventing and responding to this heinous crime. And whereas National Human Trafficking Prevention Month serves as an opportunity to educate communities, empower survivors, and recommit to eradicating human trafficking in all its forms. And whereas the town of Killingley stands in solidarity with survivors and all those working tirelessly to combat human trafficking and to ensure that every individual can live with dignity, freedom, and security. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Town Council of the Town of Killingley that January 2025 be publicly recognized as National Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and encourages all residents to become informed about human trafficking, recognize the signs, and support efforts to end this global crisis. Killingley Town Council, Jason Anderson, Chairman, dated at Killingley, Connecticut, this 14th day of January 2025. All right, at this time, I apologize. I got ahead of myself. At 7 o'clock, we were supposed to open up a public hearing on item 14A. So at this time, we will open up the public hearing. It is currently 7:09 PM. And Ms. Gloria, can you just go over item 14A?
Yes, 14A is a proposed amendment to the Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances, which includes which is the creation of the Vision Committee, and all the proposed language around the creation of that Vision Committee.
So at this time, if any of the members of the public want to speak to this, please step up to the podium and state your name and address.
And just for the record, no public comment was received via email or in writing.
Thank you.
Hi, Ian McDonald, 548 Valley Road.
Just make sure the microphone's turned on. There's a button. It'll
There we go.
turn
Sorry
green.
about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I haven't been, following the Vision Committee quite as closely as some probably. I'll just say that, couple things, in terms of what's happening with the sewer plant, I think I bring that up because, and first of all, I just want to say that I appreciate Joe Courtney came to town looking at that, and I think there was pretty good turnout from the folks in this room joining him, so it's good to see everybody kind of, pushing in the right direction, at least as regards that visit. In terms of what's happening with, we're going to have a while before there's obviously going to be challenges with new businesses coming into town. That's going to take a while to resolve. I do hope that we're looking at all grants. I know there's a deep grant that's available, wastewater grant that's, I think, closes Friday. I hope if appropriate, we're looking at that. But as we, that's going to be a long-term thing, and I think we also need to have kind of an interim vision in terms of what are we going to do until, that kind of changes the dynamics and what we're looking at in terms of any sort of economic development. I would suggest, I think there's been some positive movement in terms of downtown. I think that's a place we really could focus on in the near term to kind of solidify that, to really kind of get some traction there. I will say just one last note on that. I was a little concerned about, I know the complex had their location there, and there was an issue there with, they didn't feel comfortable. There was some sort of, some inappropriate behavior, and they decided to leave. But I will say my wife had signed my kids up to a couple classes there, and there was a lot of parents and kids going to downtown every week, often. There were people that were going to nearby shops and coming back, and that kind of, and that's not just to buy one thing. That was a frequent thing, bringing people downtown. Those kind of, the previous owner of that building had said, we don't have enough foot traffic. Here was something that was bringing in foot traffic. That's not to cast any, aspersions on anything that was done around that. I don't really know exactly what the situation was, but we need to be, those kind of places that are bringing people down on a regular basis are very valuable, and I hope that sort of thing is considered. So I guess as far as the Vision Committee goes, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment to item 14A, which is the establishment of the Vision Committee? Seeing no more public comment, we will close the public hearing. It is currently 7:14 PM. And we'll move on in the agenda. Item 7, we have nothing for unfinished business for town meeting action. We'll move on to item 8, which is citizen statements and petitions. At this point, if anyone would like to make comments in regards to anything, please step up to the podium and just state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Peter Derry. I live at 20 Arrowhead Lane, Dayville, Alexander's Lake. A few weeks back, I heard Mary Calario on WINY Radio. You did a fine job, Mary, by the way, discussing the water treatment facility plant and how it could cost $40 million to update. And that kind of piqued my interest a bit. It seemed a bit expensive, but when I heard that there were federal and state grant money available, along with town money, I realized that this is all of our own tax dollars to begin with. So I think $40 million is a lot of money. When I further discovered that half of the volume of the water treatment plant comes from a local manufacturing plant, Frito-Lay, and that their 20-year-old contract comes due or is due, my first thought was, why doesn't Frito-Lay filter their own production water before they send it to our water treatment plant? They can't possibly be covering the process, or the cost of the process of this waste with a 20-year-old contract. After further research, it was discovered that Frito-Lay in Arizona and other plants do just that. They have a filtration system that renders their production water that goes to the water treatment plants very clean. All nutrients, otherwise known as sludge, are removed at the plant, not at our facility. It just seems that now is the opportune time, with Frito's contract renewal up, the town trying to raise $40 million to update the treatment plant, and our community on a moratorium where they can't hook up to the wastewater facility, whether it's commercial, residential, or multi-homes, and we need multi-housing desperately right now. This would be the opportune time to do that, and it's a capacity issue. I believe that Frito should be treating their own production wastewater first before it hits our water plant. It happens that we might need to spend, that we might not need to spend $40 million, maybe something much less expensive. Perhaps a small task force could study this before we spend any more money, and I'd be willing to join that force if one were to be formed. So, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Lois Latraverse, 64 Island Road, Dayville. So I'm here to speak also on the wastewater treatment plant, and I won't reiterate, I have the same feelings as Peter does on the amount of effluent that Frito-Lay sends, and I'm more interested in the contract negotiations ongoing now. And I hope that, I know everybody loves Frito-Lay, and Frito-Lay's a big business in town, and it's a big employer. I get that. But they are a $1 billion company, and their profits in 2023 were 42%. And I'm like, okay, if they were to treat their own water with that membrane system that's out there that they do in Arizona, it would cut that effluent in half, which would mean that the wastewater treatment plant could actually operate as it does, because they wouldn't be treating the water. They can handle the water, they can't handle the waste. If the town still feels, and I get it, the plant is got to be, what, 50 years old? Was 42 years old in 2014, so it's got to be, it's old. And I suspect that in the coming years, you've got growth, we don't know what the town's growth is going to be. But I would think that you're probably thinking, you've got state and federal money right now, and maybe you do need to expand the plant, but you could help with the moratorium if Frito-Lay would take care of their own effluent. There's really no reason why they can't do that. I mean, it's a money thing, and they don't want to spend the money, and they take advantage of small towns. It's not fair. It's not fair to the taxpayers. It's not fair to the rest of us. So I hope in the contract that you, and is it possible, do you do a 20-year contract again? Because, boy, things have changed in the last 5 years, never mind. I can't even imagine what technology and science is going to be like in the next 20 years. So if you were able to have a 20-year contract with a 10-year reopen or something, that in case there's changes, I don't know. I just hope that, that you will be a little stronger with Frito-Lay and push. Give them some incentives or something to make them take care of their own effluent. There's no reason why they can't do that. It's money, they got it. Okay, thank you. Good night to be out with the moon. It was beautiful.
Thank you.
Ian McDonald, 548 Valley Road. Just a few other little things. One, I just want to say, you know, I've been impressed with the Killingly Public Library. My kids have been going there, doing some of the programs, and, you know, librarians are very, I was just down there, just wanted to mention, I'm very impressed. They're very helpful, and they're really, you know, the kids are into it without, you know, they're better at encouraging them than I am, certainly, so just wanted to mention that. And just to follow up, in terms of the sewer plant, you know, we really, maybe we are on the ball with all the, in terms of getting federal, state grants. I hope we're also in conversation with the Connecticut Green Bank. There could be some opportunities either via the Green Bank or IRA funding in terms of one design versus another. And so I hope we're kind of keeping that in mind in case there's some potential for more grants or revenue based on a particular design as we look at that. In terms of the battery plant, I've spoken on that before, but I'll just say that, you know, I certainly have concerns in terms of looking at, you know, there's a fire recently at Lake Road Generating, and there was some, I don't know if there was a communication issue there. That seemed like a bit of a scary issue. I will say that my understanding of this plant, this proposal for the battery plant, is it's an LFP instead of an NMCA, which is a much safer chemistry. But that said, you know, we want to make sure there's no discrepancy in terms of everybody, communication and people understanding what's going on with that. So I'm not, you know, necessarily opposed to the project, and I do think it is a safer battery chemistry, but I think all our fire departments need to have a high level of confidence with how they're dealing with anything that does happen there. And I guess lastly, you know, I know there was, in terms of the project on Hartford Pike, I certainly written, as I think a lot of others, expressing concerns around traffic with that project. And it seems like, I guess maybe there was some sort of verbal agreement or something, but there was a delay in terms of the actual DOT permit there. And I think given, that property actually used to be my stepfather used to have an insurance office on that property, so I'm, you know, very familiar with it. But it's, in terms of, there was a lot of concerns around transportation there and traffic, and so I don't feel great that DOT permit wasn't ready to go before we started building. And we don't want to have a situation where people starting projects think they can just go forward and ask for forgiveness later if they're not doing everything they need to do. Especially, you know, this was not sandbags along the river. This was not, you know, a critical path project. It might be good, but it's not, you know, it wasn't so urgent that it couldn't have all its proper permits and filing. So, you know, I would just encourage that. And I think that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment? Ms. Clory, did we have anything submitted by email?
None were submitted.
Okay, thank you. Last call for public comment. Seeing none, we'll move on the agenda. Next item up is item 9, council and staff comments.
I have comments. So these are questions then for you, Mary, because, so what's being thrown around, I've heard now 2 people and 1 commission member talk about the MBR, asking them to do that. It's basically like, you probably know already, their own little plant, right? So the nutrients come out at the end, and there's almost no nutrients. The flow's almost clean. So you and I had talked about just so I understand, and it probably will help them to understand the process of negotiations. The process, not where you, nothing about it, because I know that's like secret. We can't force them, even if we went into negotiations, to build an MBR. So the only, right, we've already agreed to allowing their capacity, right? That's because the EPA were locked into that. So we could ask them to do an MBR, and please correct me, I'm just trying to remember what we had talked about. We could ask them to do an MBR, we can't force them, then the only recourse for us would be to charge them a lot. At the time, we talked before, I had been thinking about it and learning about this process, you know, it was said that maybe it wouldn't be fair to ask them to pick up basically the town's growth. And I thought, yeah, that makes sense. But I have recently talked to somebody in Brockton, and they had similar issues. And the first thing they said was, why is one industry? So I think it's a legitimate question. Doesn't mean we can make it happen, but it does make me think it. So could you, and I'll say for everyone here, MBR, it's not like, okay, they can just build this MBR and do it, because it would affect us either way. It would change our nutrient level, which might create other problems. They may not have the space to put in that plant, so even if we suggested, it might not be really feasible for them. But could you explain the process, like what possibilities would we have in negotiations with that?
So I honestly don't know that I can really go into depth with regards to negotiations. We're under negotiations. So I think you've encapsulated all the different possibilities around what we could or could not ask. But again, this is all in a negotiation process. So I can't really disclose what our process is through that negotiation at
Right,
this
but,
time.
so let's do a hypothetical, just so everyone and myself understand. I'm going into a negotiations with, a wastewater plant, da-da-da.
Yeah, I mean,
What are
clearly
my
we-
rights to,
Well, I mean,
ask
clearly,
them?
we ask for what we feel the town needs to get. As we all know, negotiation is just that, a negotiation. Not everybody wins 100% of what their position is. And we try and come to the best, most reasonable agreement for both parties, that both parties will ultimately agree on. This contract negotiation, we have the chair of the WPCA is participating in that. We have a lot of members on the town side that are participating in that negotiation process that has a lot of very similar questions, a lot of similar concerns. And, I will say at this point, I think we have had some really good conversations with Frito, but I can't go into what those are at this time.
Thank you. And I'll also throw out, like, when you do an MBR, the loading is so clean at the end, you might lose your revenue, the revenue that we do get, and I think that would be something for consideration. All right, I was just trying to, I'd encourage everybody to come to tomorrow night's meeting at WPCA at 5 p.m. if you wanted to say what you said here and encourage that. I think it's a good idea. I don't know if it's true. And my last thing is, where are we with the January grant money?
I will double check with regards to, Dave has been compiling all of the grant applications. There's about 4 different grant applications that he's working through at the moment and getting those submitted. So I, off the top of my head, I didn't speak to him today to find out exactly where he was with the January one. We are also meeting with our federal delegate staff liaisons for congressional delegation funds for submitting for those. And we are also meeting with federal EPA and actually 2 different EPA components to explore grant opportunities through those arms as well. I'll be meeting with our state legislators as well to determine if we can submit for direct funding under, if we'll be able to get a proposal for legislation. I did have a conversation with Lieutenant Governor Bysowitz And she was, supportive of looking at legislation through the state to assist with some state match to a federal component. So we've got a lot of irons in the fire around trying to determine that, as well as we're not just going after grant money for a capacity increase and being blind to, we'll just keep a moratorium. We're also exploring at the same time how we might be able to gain interim capacity to be able to allow for some limited growth during this time frame. So, we kind of have every iron we possibly can in the fire all at the same time. It's a lot of moving parts. I will tell you, Dave and I have been on meetings for different components of this several times a week to try and step through what available components we may have.
Well, that sounds excellent, Mary. So the January grant hasn't gone past. We're still working on that.
Correct.
That's why, somehow I heard that was gone. Good.
Mary, on the Frito-Lay, it's probably important for the people to know that you just can't go in there and say, we're going to give you this rate increase. There's some kind of value engineering like the power plant where it could go
Correct.
into mitigation and litigation as well.
Correct.
So you have to come up with some kind of medium.
Correct. And,
Right.
clearly the plant has been accepting and treating their discharge for all these years. So there is historical basis there for being able to treat. And so, yes, we have to be mindful of what, potential litigation or mediation that this may move into as well. So, again, with every contract negotiation, there's two sides to that negotiation. We have to hopefully come to somewhere that is reasonable and beneficial to both sides in order to be able to get to a positive result.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Grandelsky.
The dance complex that closed its doors, that's an interesting issue that I kind of got sort of a small glimpse of that a little while ago on an email that I didn't have time to pursue, and I got a little more the last couple of days. And,
Ed, you need to turn on your mic.
Thank you. The dance complex that moved out of town due to inappropriate behavior by individuals, and the people felt that they weren't properly served by our police contingent. I don't know, we try to attract people to downtown, and as one of the speakers mentioned, we got a lot of people coming down to use this facility, participate in what they're out there. And further, when they leave there, they go to some of the other coffee shops and whatnot. So we try to do something, and then we don't follow up. Maybe it's not out there, maybe it's not, information gets out that there's issues going on. I think we have to start paying a little more attention. I look at a lot of things, especially because we use the resident trooper program, so people have to contact Troop D. And Troop D is not always attentive to the needs of the town of Killingly. They look at, because they're the state, and it's under the resident trooper program, and that's where they are. And sometimes the response is, it's not a high enough need. There's other things that are going on.
Can I?
So I don't know how we can go. Maybe we have to enhance our constable program and to keep programs or keep businesses like this here. But I think somehow we do miss the boat on some of the interaction with Troop D, but that's the way the system is set up. It's unfortunately, we have to work. We contracted with the state, with the resident trooper program, and they have their scenario, so I understand that, but maybe we got to do something else to enhance that program.
So a couple of things. Number one, yes, until we move out into our own municipal police force, you're still going to fall under Troop D. That's the way that process works unless you're an independent municipal police department. Number two, the incident of concern was immediately, their PD was called and there was an immediate response, and that was handled immediately. What I would encourage people, I've had communications with a number of individuals. What I would encourage is that even if you don't think Troop D is going to listen to you, call in the complaint when it's happening. Don't wait 3 days. Don't wait a week and tell your neighbor and tell the coffee shop owner, right? You need to call it in then. That is when they can respond, and that is when they can, try and deal with the circumstances. That has definitely become a challenge, is that there is a perception that, well, I'm bothering and I don't want to call in whatever the concern is, but then that grows and heightens. People become more and more concerned about something, yet, there hasn't been an opportunity to have an effective response to that. So I would encourage those, anything that people find, challenging or disturbing, that they contact Troop D right away. They call that in. There is a log that's created. That the resident state trooper sergeant pulls those logs. They can see when calls or complaints go in, even if ultimately a trooper responds and there's no report around it. They are able to at least pull those call logs so we can get data around that. So I will always encourage everyone to call. But I do want to be clear that the PD responded to the complaint and call that they received and managed that appropriately with regards to the specific incident.
Because I know in my experience, I know certain instances, and I will call Troop D just to be on record. And even some, individual says, you have to call Troop D. That's the way the system works. So if you don't make the call, nothing, that's even worse. Again, I don't know enough specifics about that particular issue and everything surrounding it, but like I say, I try to advocate, call Troop D. If it's not, if people are elsewhere, they try to look at a priority, what is going on, and, we only have so many people to cover, so much of the town. There was, I guess, a comment about the battery storage, and I heard something earlier today, I don't know enough about it, but I guess the applicant got another extension, of the deciding council gave them another extension. I'll look into that a little bit further. But again, a lot of the issues, we had to hurry up with our response from planning and zoning and wetlands. And it's sort of, we got it done, but we were under the gun. And somehow that should have got to the deciding council. The only thing we got, our attorneys wrote a letter to the deciding council that the hard copies of the comments from P&Z and wetlands, that we needed a few more days to get those hard copies out there. But what we should have got was an extension to really look into some of the issues that are associated with a battery storage facility. I know town council members were going to get that to you so that our attorney can push that forward, but then again, some of these clocks are ticking. We do not get a reprieve. In every instance, the other guys get reprieves, and we're stuck at the end of the, whatever it is,
And if I can, with regards to the battery storage and the attorney's
Okay.
letter. That was drafted after our attorneys had had a conversation with Melanie Bachman, the citing council attorney, and that was the extent of which they were allowing for an extension. They would not consider anything longer than that. Both the planning and zoning and the inland wetlands communications to the citing council both specifically state that there was additional information that should have been included in their applications that was not, and that they would request the ability to re-review those when that's submitted. So that has been communicated to the citing council, both by planning and zoning and inland wetlands, that they feel that they didn't have full and complete applications and that they needed to have additional information, and they've requested reserved the right to be able to further submit comment with regards to additional information once and if that is actually provided. So, but I want to be clear that the attorney had reached out to the citing council to get additional extension of time, and the citing council attorney only was very specific about how much time would be allowed for that extension,
Well,
which is why it was worded in the way that it was, so that way it would be granted.
well, that was the thing. It should have been, I think it would have been nice that from my standpoint, if our attorneys requested a general extension, item one, and that be one item, and they could have denied it. I didn't see a request or a denial. That's why I'm making that statement. Let's see, what else do we have? I guess the rest I can wait until we get to the particular agenda items.
Thank you. I just want to add one thing as far as the battery storage, just to acknowledge. I've been through listening to when Vitus had that public information meeting at the high school, and reviewing it, they even made comments that they didn't have their noise analysis done. So, I mean, that's, and at no point have they come back forward before the public before submitting their application to the citing council, which the citing council did deem was incomplete, and it gave them an extension. At no point have they come back to the public of Killingly with a complete noise analysis.
Well, again, the same thing. All the comments that we made at the public information meeting, I think our attorneys, they were there. We paid them to be there. We're paying big money, and I do not think we are getting the representation that we should get. I mean, in addition to some of the comments, if we go, we take the time, other people take the time to go to a public meeting and basically, oh, we're not listening to you, the citing council says, all we have to do is get paperwork in from planning and zoning and wetlands and general public, I can't say what I'm thinking. So,
I will say that we did submit for party status because
Well,
it's an
right, but-
incomplete application, and the town attorney, the attorney that's representing the town, the response from the citing council was, it's an incomplete application, they're not going to grant party status until they have a complete application. So we do have that process going, and as I've reached out to council members, we're going to submit questions to the town attorney that's going to represent us, so that way she knows where the council's coming from as far as what our questions are, what our concerns are, what the concerns and questions we've received from the public are, so that way these questions can get presented throughout the citing council process.
Well, at least we have something there, but I mean, the applicant has a greater advantage, and everybody's supposed to respond to them in a heartbeat. That's why I'm making that comment. And citing council, if you hear it, I don't care. You take it out on me if you want, but, we're following the rules. We're following the rules. That's what I get from all these institutions. And then I start seeing things, we are not following the rules. and it really fries me. And when you bring it to someone's attention, and I get chastised to point out the rules aren't being followed, so when I have a chance to say something, I will say it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'll just say on the sound, Jason, I thought they clarified and said they couldn't do the sound until the machinery was up. Like, wasn't a preliminary
There-
sound?
The comment was made that the noise analysis had not been done yet, and that would be in the application, the permit application to the siting council. So, well, they had done a preliminary,
Okay.
but they hadn't done the actual detailed noise analysis.
Yeah, I thought, if it said it, then I'm behind you. I thought they said, how can you do the noise analysis when the equipment's not up yet, like their final one?
Same way you do any noise analysis on any project that's coming in. It's, you know what decibel levels each piece of equipment puts out. You look at a study of the topography, everything around it. There's modeling they can do
Okay.
for noise
Yep,
analysis.
Okay, I thought they went out after, like with Frito-Lay.
They do noise sampling
Preliminary.
of background.
Yeah, okay.
And you take that into consideration when you're doing your noise study as well. So. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll move on the agenda. Next item up will be the discussion over regarding the Planning and Zoning Commission terms. And Ms. Calorio, as I stated earlier, Ms. Calorio and I have been in contact. It was brought to my attention that there were some issues with the expiration dates of existing Planning and Zoning Commission members as they were listed on the town website. I did review of a few of them, and I did find some that, two of them that I brought to Ms. Calorio's attention, that the actual appointment that was done by the council, going back through the agenda, the interview, the agenda, and the minutes from the meetings, the actual appointments the council made don't concur with what it states on the website. At that point, she did a deep dive as well, reached out to the town attorney regarding these concerns, and I will let her take it from here.
Sure. So in that review, I really had to kind of peel back to try and figure out what went awry. So number one, the state statute only allows for Planning and Zoning Commission members, only 3 of them to come due in any given year. So they're required to be staggered by state statute, both Chapter 124 and 126. 124 is Planning Commission, 126 is Zoning Commission. So looking at that, clearly something went awry. I went back through the years to try and figure out what happened. And really peeling back, what happened was so their terms are also from January to December. That's important to understand. Back in 2018, when a previous applicant, which Matt ended up taking this position, when a person was reappointed for their term that would have started in January of 2018, the ending date should have been December of 2020. That's 3 years, because all of 2018, all of 2019, all of 2020 gets you 3 years. When they were preparing at that time, it was approved for a 4-year period, which exceeds what our charter language is for terms, which is a 3-year term. And again, what likely happened was they were looking at the years. 2018 add 3, gets you to 2021, without realizing that it's January to December, right? So that occurred with 3 of the applicants, Matt's position, Virga's position, and John Sarantopoulos' position. And then when you roll forward with 3-year terms after that, you end up landing them all expiring in 2024. Also, Keith Thurlow's position was similarly impacted when he was reappointed for the term in January of 2017. when they did that one, instead of ending the term in December of 2019, they actually ended it in December of 2020, which gave it a 4-year term as opposed to an appropriate 3-year term. So that would have kept the staggering, right? The only one that was actually correct through that timeline was Brian. So Brian would have actually expired in 2024 if we follow that through. And so I did the breakdown of, what everyone would have had if they were expiring accordingly. And so, if it had followed appropriately, correctly by 3-year terms, Matt would have actually had a corrected expiration of 2026. Verga and John Sarantopoulos would have been similarly, and Keith Thurlow would have had an expiration of December of 2025. However, so, I brought this all to the attorney and said, how do we fix it at this point in time? Because we can't, all of the, by state statute, can't all remain coming up for reappointments all at the same time. Only 3 can. The other 2 have to be on offsetting. So how do we move forward with correcting this? And there's kind of 3 ways to correct it. There's 1, recognizing the error, correcting the terms as they should have been, and giving everybody what they're, essentially recognizing what the true terms should have been. However, that's not how the council had voted, was the council voted for the specific terms. The other option is to do the reappointments, but recognize them under the corrected terms. So the terms that you have listed in your packets for the regular position will be wrong. That we are going to have to look at having you guys correct that to the correct term, which will be January 1st of 2024 through December 31st of 2026. That is the correct term. And then we would have potentially the other 3 candidates, Brian, John Sarantopoulos, and Keith Thurlow, apply for reappointment, but they would have different terms. They would have a January 1st of 2025 to December 31st of 2027, right? That still staggers everybody. That would keep 2 positions expiring in 2026, and the remaining 3 expiring in 2027. The alternates would be, 1 would be expiring in 2027, and the other 2 would expire in 2026. So that way in 26, you would have 4 potential candidates from the Planning and Zoning Commission coming up for reappointment, 2 regular and 2 alternate. And then in 2027, you would have 3 regular and 1 alternate that would come up for reappointment. So that would be the way to do it. So our attorney has recommended that you proceed with, asking Brian, John, and Keith to, if they're interested in reappointment. We have reached out to all of them. Brian has already submitted his application for reappointment. Keith has indicated that he's seeking reappointment, and I'm not honestly sure if Ashley had an opportunity to actually speak to John today about that reappointment, but we're anticipating that he is going to be seeking reappointment and to manage those separately. So the open positions are the one Matt has resigned, and then Verga's position is also for regular positions available for filling at this point in time, and then there would be the alternate positions, if that makes sense. It was quite an education process going through all of this. I will say that one of the subsequent challenges that I had going through this was the state statute for term lengths actually refers back to the town's ordinance or charter. When the charter revision occurred in 2019, the intent was, and it should have happened, the intent was that the language within the charter for any of the boards and commissions that got moved to ordinance was supposed to just move to the ordinance. The language for the planning and zoning, that section there was already a section in the ordinance. The only thing I can think of is that because there was already a section in the ordinance, they didn't complete the language from the charter. So we do have to do that cleanup from the ordinance subcommittee component of amending it to truly capture the remaining balance of the language from the charter that really outlines the 3-year term. But the attorney said, treat everything as though it's a 3-year term, just like you always have, because that is what was truly the intent of this. And historically, that's how it's been done, is truly a 3-year term. The time period in which this was inadvertently expanded to a 4-year term was prior to charter revision, so it has nothing to do with a change between where we thought we were going to be within the charter and where we wanted to be in ordinance. It has nothing to do with that. This was all done prior, and really, it was, I think the individuals were focused on, it's very easy to have happen. I have to sit there and go, okay, it's all of this year and all of that year, just because it's January to December, and when you look at those dates of 2018 and 2020, you immediately think that's only 2 years. And so I think they immediately went 3 years by the year, as opposed to recognizing one of them is starting at the beginning of the year and the other one is ending at the end of the year and capturing the 3 years. So I think it was a very inadvertent mistake that occurred years back. Really, that's the recommendation in order to be able to correct it, is correct the terms as you're appointing people now, so that way you re-stagger those terms and remanage the entire group.
The other thing, just add one thing first. The other thing that may come into play too is board and commission members don't always apply for reappointment before their term's already expired. Going back and looking at some of them, sometimes they apply for reappointment a couple months before their term expires, being in December. Sometimes they apply for reappointment in January or February after their term's already expired. So I can see that adding to the confusion because they're interviewing 1 year, another year.
We also had a few that moved from alternate
Alternate to regular.
positions to regular
Yeah.
positions during this, which they were changing terms from one term to, it does get convoluted at times. So I just wanted to kind of give you that walkthrough as to what occurred and what the attorney's recommendation was around correcting it moving forward, so that way the commission is, and the terms are in compliance with state statute, so we can make sure that we are keeping that staggered appointment.
Go
To
ahead.
maybe eliminate confusion, because you have an alternate taking the place of someone else. We're always using the names of our citizens. Why can't we say regular position number 1, regular position number 2, regular position number 3, 4, and 5?
Yeah.
And here's the dates.
Yep.
I mean, that may be if you're number 1, that's not meant, but it would identify the specific
Yeah.
position. And then when someone moves from alternate, they're taking that position.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it takes the confusion of their alternate time frame because it's going into another time frame.
Yeah, that's kind of what we kind of try and do in the background, so that way we can track it. You know, they went from, to regular member, this regular member, without having the names. Like, a lot of times we put on our sheet vacant, and we know it's, first vacant, second vacant, so that way we identify internally. We know which one that term applies to within your document, so we kind of do that on the back end. Again, there's a lot of change that occurred during
No,
that
but
time
that's-
period in which that occurred, and it's an unfortunate mistake that happened.
But like I say, we just say position, regular position number 1, and keep that right there. Then however it turns out, whatever name gets associated, but I don't care about that. But then it's that's the position, regular position number 1, or something, we put an identifiable that it follows all the individuals, and then we
Yeah.
might be away from that. Because, yeah, there's been so many times, the times have been on, all of a sudden, yeah, they've been a year over, they've expired,
Yeah.
and then we're getting it. So we're forgetting, then we lose, like you're saying, now they're reappointed at an interim time during they got a 3-year term.
No, it's the.
It's
they're
gotta go
filling
back to
half
the
of
s-
a three-year term, two-thirds.
Right,
Right.
right.
And that's where, I will say that there was a time period in which it was, we had some really long-term staff that was very accustomed to that filling portions of
Yeah,
and
no, right,
following that
right.
historical track of terms. And then with some of that changeover, some of the staff really they struggled wrapping their head around, well, if they're appointed for a 3-year term, why doesn't the 3-year term just start now? Like, why is it that they're only going to get 3 months of an old term and you're going to go back to this? And this is exactly why.
Right,
You
right,
have to
that's-
fill that old term, and then you have to roll forward to the new terms, right? So it is challenging, especially when you've had no exposure previously to boards and commissions and terms. This can feel like a real foreign language when you're first working through it. So, again, an unfortunate circumstance. I can see how easily it can happen. But that's how they ended up all aligning inadvertently, really, on the 2024 date. And this is the recommendation for how to proceed forward with correcting that. So when you get into your interview candidates, like your first one, Michael Huco, he's requesting to go from alternate to regular member. The dates for that term would run from January 1st of 2024 to December 31st of 2026. And then depending on whether or not you're looking at alternate or regular member for the other two will depend on what those dates need to be. So we'll fill those in as you're looking at them and discussing what your options are for that. We will fill those in, but just know that we're going to have to kind of talk through those terms and don't just follow what's on your paper right now, given the information that we now have after today's historical view.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we start right now and say, regular position number 1, here is the term. For each one right now, we'd have it established, and then when it comes to us, because I sort of had this question before, I said, I'm not asking that question. I will vote if they're up there, let someone else figure it out. But now, I guess, given this circumstance.
And I can do that very easily.
I
As you're
think we
going
could.
through, I
Yeah,
have the
I've already
form.
got it changed on mine, so I'm going to ask for.
That's fine.
A motion to appoint so-and-so to, and then we go into discussion, but I will state the corrected terms that will stagger them.
What I think we
as
want
we
to put,
discussed.
we gotta we gotta identify that each,
And I understand that, so I have that on my sheet, so when you're getting to there, I will say vacant regular position number 2.
yeah, right, okay, sure,
And
that's,
vacant
yes.
position, regular
yes.
position number 3.
Sure,
right?
that would work.
And that way you know which one on the sheet it would which
And then
one
there's
it
no
would apply
question when
to.
it comes out there, the term on regular position number 1 is A to B. Number 2 is A to B, and then item 3, B to C to D, and it will clean this up.
Yeah.
And then, because we were looking at, well, you're taking someone else's position by, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
I can see it. I saw it in the background, but it wasn't an issue that I thought was to the level that needed to be taken care of. But obviously, I guess it should have.
It's a mess.
What we're gonna do.
Yeah.
But we'll clean it up, that's all, that's
Yeah.
good, that,
Yeah. And what kind of spurred this whole thing was I had someone approach me and ask me earlier in the year, apparently all of the Planning and Zoning Commission members' terms expired December of 2024, but they had noticed at some point, some point last year, some of them had gotten changed. And I was dumbfounded, didn't have an explanation to why. And that's what spurred my dive into all of this. And I do know there have been times we've had issues with the website. I don't see how that would have happened like that as a website issue, but we've had issues before where the town council members' phone numbers disappear off the website. And then I address that with the town manager, she gets it reposted. But to me, I mean, that was the thing that was brought up to me that spurred this whole, what's going on with the terms, who was appointed when, and that's when it was like, okay, we gotta look into this, so.
It was a very good historical view research topic today. It's good.
Yeah. So, any other questions regarding this? I will float an idea out there, if we're gonna number them, that way nobody's thinking we're giving someone regular 1, regular 2, regular 3. If we were to do it by whatever appointments fall tonight.
I
and
already
then we-
have them numbered based on how we have them set up in the
Okay,
spreadsheet
all
already.
right, then
So
we'll,
I'm just going by what the spreadsheet is, so I don't have to make them
Okay, all
rework the
right.
world.
okay, so going by the spreadsheet you have, which existing members, what are the numbers for the existing members right now?
The existing members, Brian Card is regular member 1. Matt Wendorf, which is now a vacant position, would be regular member 2.
Okay,
Virgil Lorenz, which is now also a vacant position, that would be regular member 3.
okay,
John Serentopoulos is regular member 4, and Keith Thurlow is regular member 5.
okay. And then the alternates are
Alternates-
all vacant right now?
Well,
Or actually,
no.
Mr. Hugo.
Mr.
is-
Hugo, Mr. Hugo is alternate 1, and then I have alternate vacant 2 and alternate vacant 3.
Yep, okay. Now, the terms for these are,
Yes.
so the 2 and 3 would be the ones that would run from January
January.
1st, 24 to December 31st to 26.
Correct. And those
Okay.
are the 2 that the town attorney is advised, is currently
Yeah, we're in a-
considered vacant.
Yep, yeah, so in a sense, we're looking at those, it's a 3-year term, but the term started last year.
Correct, started in
that way-
January of
Right,
'24.
yes.
We're,
Or-
we're
yeah.
still abiding by charter and ordinance, and it's a
Yes.
3-year term, but we're setting it, starting a year ago, so that way we can stagger them, and we don't have more
Right.
than 3, which state statute requires you can't have more than 3 that expire.
They're gonna fill 2 out of 3 years.
Yes.
Correct.
They're filling 2 out
They're
of the 3.
filling the last 2 years of a 3-year term.
Correct.
So that would get us back to where we need to be,
And-
term length and state statute requirements and charter requirements and ordinance.
Alternate 1 and alternate, if you move Michael Hugo to a regular position, then alternate 1 and alternate 2 would also have the same term lengths.
From 24 to 26.
And
Yep.
then alternate 3 would have 25 to 27.
Yeah, that works. I think that gets us, because even you're taking so-and-so's name, and, yeah, I understand. So, yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay.
And then we meet state statute, and we,
A lot of moving parts.
It is.
Any other questions regarding this? Comments? Okay. All right, I'm glad we got through that. Moving on in the agenda, next item up is item 10A. Michael Hugo is requesting a change from alternate member to regular member. And as we just discussed, the term would run from January 1st, and this is a correction of what's in the agenda. It would be January 1st, 2024 to December 30th of 2026. Mr. Hugo has attended 11 out of 12 meetings in 2024 and 9 out of 9 meetings in 2023. The Planning and Zoning Commission currently has 2, and this is a correction to the posted agenda, 2 regular member vacancies, and
It's listed as 2 because because Mike Hugo is currently 1, so if you don't change him, he would still remain as a alternate member. So there's 2.
so currently, there's still, yep, that
There's
was the
2
one thing I was
vacancies,
going
yes.
through, yep.
It gets confusing.
Yep,
well, that's again with this,
I would-
this would work. Yes, this will work in this case, because his name would appear in 2 places.
So
well, right
I
now,
would
it
ad-
still only appears
In
as,
one.
because yeah, he's still considered an alternate.
Alternate, right.
Until we vote, if it passes, then he would get moved. So if this,
I would identify this one. If you move him, he would move to regular member 2 position.
yep, okay.
Right.
All right, so the Planning and Zoning Commission currently has 2 regular member vacancies and 2 alternate member vacancies. Again, a regular member term runs for 3 years from January 1st to December 31st. And as I had indicated, it would be January 1st, 24 to December 31st of 26. And that would be for regular member seat 2. Can I get a motion to appoint Mr. Hugo to this term as specified.
I'll make that motion.
Motion was made by Mr. Grandelski. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. George. I will open up for discussion.
Well, he's been pretty much a regular member. Since he's got appointed as an alternate, I think almost every meeting, he has been moved up to a regular member. So he got into the fire right away. It was good. And, you know, I guess that's, so he's got experience.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
So Mike did answer the question that he would listen to the people, what they want of the town, because the people vote the town council in, because the town council is supposed to follow what the people want, and the town council appoints people to planning and zoning, and planning and zoning is supposed to follow what the townspeople want. So he did say he would listen to the townspeople, and he thought that town participation was important at meetings, although he didn't have any definitive answer about rural development, and he did not acknowledge the petition that went around where people of the town wanted to keep the rural areas rural.
Thank you. I will say there are times where, because they're a regulatory body and there's a lot of state statute that covers what they can and can't do, a lot of stuff they have to abide by state statute. Even if the majority of town is against something or for something, they can't go against state statute with it being a regulatory commission. So, but it's always great to allow for the public to comment and have participation in meetings and workshops. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
We have 2 abstentions. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, we'll move on. It is item, get back to the number, 10B. Norm Farren is seeking appointment as a regular alternate member of Planning and Zoning Commission. I will entertain a motion to appoint Norm Farren on a term as a regular member that will run from January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2026. Yes?
Jason,
Yes?
I have a question.
Okay.
When this all happened last week, we had 2 alternates available. We had 1 regular member available. So these 3 applicants applied when that was the case. What happened last week with Virgo was an absolute disgrace. I only make note because we also had an applicant that tried getting in the building. He did show up, but through whatever, he didn't get in the building. And we're interviewing him next week. So I'm not comfortable appointing 2 regular members tonight and 1 alternate, when we had technically 4 applicants, and we didn't have that regular member opening until after what happened to Virgo.
I will say this much.
Point of order also, I happen to agree with Ms. George. When we were interviewing, there was 1 member and 2 alternates. And the 2, and to be frank and honest with you, Mr. Farren and Mrs. Lagarde, they don't have a whole lot of experience, and maybe coming in as an alternate and sitting in a few meetings, getting to know, getting their feet wet a little bit is a better thing than, because as important as planning and zoning is, I think you need to make sure you have informed people on being seated as regular members.
And I also have a question, so we're going in order here, but why are you automatically, Mr. Chair, appointing Norm Farren as regular when you still have another alternate? So there's a little conflict here that we need to figure out.
I am asking for a motion. I just put the new terms in there.
No, you did call him a regular member
Yes.
instead of
You did.
regular
Yes.
or alternate.
Yes, I am asking for a motion, and if there isn't interest in that motion, then I will,
Point of
Call
order,
for-
don't
call
we
for a different
second in
motion.
discussion, or, you know, because we could be having this discussion during the discussion, right?
Yeah,
Or-
abso-
All right, I'm
absolutely.
going to second that, or am I doing the motion, then we'll discuss what you
well,
guys
I
are
was
saying?
asking for a motion, I haven't received.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, and that motion would be for Mr. Farren to be appointed as a regular member of Planning and Zoning Commission with a term that would run from January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2026.
I'll second that.
All right, we had a motion made by Ms. Murphy, seconded by Mr. Whitehead, and at this point, we'll open up for discussion. I will say this, Mr. Farren did get his application in a month prior to the other applicants who came up for interview last week, and as far as Ms. George's comment about someone else interviewing next week, we do not have any interviews next week. There is no special
I said
counsel.
next month.
No, you said next week.
Okay, well, it's next month, February.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. I don't want anybody coming next week for an interview and coming to a locked door.
We're in discussion here, correct?
Yes.
To Ms. Wakefield's point, did I misunderstand? I thought Ms. Lorraine Lagarde did have experience.
On planning and zoning?
Yes,
not
it
on
wasn't
plan-
on planning and
Not on
zoning?
planning and
She
zoning.
wasn't on,
She has experience in different boards and commissions.
okay, she was on when they did the high school, okay, just wanted to clarify
Well, she's
that.
been on a few different things.
Okay.
She did redistricting as well.
Okay,
Right, but it was permanent building commission, not
permanent
planning
building,
and zoning.
thank you.
As does Mr. Farren has experience as well. So,
On permanent building?
no,
Yeah,
but
planning
this
and zoning.
isn't, this isn't permanent. We're not interviewing for permanent building commission. We're
No,
interviewing for.
Jason, you're saying Mr. Farren has experience. I was asking, where does he have experience that has to do with planning and zoning? I understand permanent building does.
No, permanent building is a separate commission from planning and zoning.
No kidding.
So-
What experience does Mr. Farren have that would align with planning and zoning? That's what I'm asking. So my point is, Lorraine Lagarde has a permanent building, so it kind of aligns with planning and zoning. She wouldn't have background that would assist and be relevant to planning and zoning. So that's what I was asking. What does Mr. Farren have?
He's not here tonight for an interview. He interviewed last week. That would have been a question you could have posed to him last week.
Board of Ed has nothing to do with planning and zoning. I'll just put it out there since you don't want to answer the question.
I've got a procedural question. Are we able to, because I actually thought we were going to discuss the thing that Tammy said and Patty said first about the guy got locked out, and so we should listen to them all. I mean, I think that holds some credence. Are we able to open it up to discuss both at the same time? We have to do one, or, you know what I mean? Like, how does that work?
Normally, when we go through the agenda, we go through in the order that the agenda is set up. The order was set up with Mr. Huco requesting the change from alternate member to regular member, which we just heard. The next one in the agenda would be 10B. Now, I will, like I had mentioned before, if you look at when the applications were received, if you want to look at Lorraine Lagarde's application, when it came in the day before, it came in last Monday. The town manager reached out to me and asked about changing the agenda to put her on the agenda to get interviewed last week. And because we were interviewing the other candidates. I was amenable to that. Something was brought to my attention afterwards that Mr. Farren had actually submitted his application in that same time frame where he could have been interviewed back in December and wasn't put on. So at that point, to me, I would look at two pieces. If I feel a person would be a good fit for the commission, and also look into when they got their application in. So, I mean, not that when they get their application in would carry more weight, but it would carry some weight as well.
Michelle, just for, as another, as an input to this, I know you mentioned whether or not it had credence to consider all three at the similar time. There's no requirement that you make an appointment tonight for any of those positions. You could hold and wait until the following meeting in order to be able to, you know, hopefully have that additional person. However, we have not yet made contact with him with regards to whether or not he's going to continue to pursue, so I can't guarantee that he's going to be on it. But he did come here. Unfortunately, I think he came in the EastCon entrance, and the security doors at the end of this hall were locked, and that's where I believe that occurred. And he was unable to get here. He didn't come in the Board of Education entrance, which had access to here. So it was an unfortunate circumstance for that. But, you know, that's potentially a possibility as well. Again, you'll have a lot of interviews and considerations for that. But.
Mr. Grandelsky.
But again, the circumstances last week had a lot of different tweaks. Originally, we had one appointment to a regular position. There was only one regular position open, and there were 2 alternate positions open. Now, because of circumstances, we have 2 regular positions to fill tonight. And we have 2 people that were probably looking at the alternate spot on last week's. That's a tweak. So, but another question, so what regular member, what number of regular member are we talking about for this position? So we get it straight.
This would be regular member 3 if
Okay,
that were.
yes, let's keep it in
Yep.
that, so
Yep.
I don't want to have another problem that we just sort of took care of, but.
So the other piece I'll throw out there, which throws a whole nother wrinkle in this, technically, all the seated members' terms have expired. So when we interviewed last week, technically, based off the appointments made by the council, every term had expired. So we could have appointed 5 people we could, if we had 5 applicants last week for regular members, we could appoint 5 new members tonight because their terms had expired. Because regardless of whether they've submitted a letter of resignation or not, you can fill a seat that has expired.
I will say the attorney has advised that you allow the 3 members, Brian, Keith, and
Yes.
John, to have an opportunity to re-interview
Yes.
and go through a reappointment process as opposed to just sweeping the entire
Yes.
5 panel because of the circumstances around
Yep.
the terms.
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
would say that based on our legal opinion, that we would be focusing on the 2 that we know have vacated.
Yep, and I completely agree with that. I was just stating a fact that, in a sense, we could have appointed all 3 members that interviewed last week for regular members tonight, because nobody had, and granted, no fault to their own, because I wasn't able to reach Mr. Sarantopoulos. I was able to reach Mr. Card last night, or yesterday afternoon, had a conversation with him that I had noted that, I know the website says this, because I wanted to know if he had no interest in seeking reappointment, then if we have 3 people interviewing, and that would make a 3rd open regular seat, then it would make tonight's decision, okay, we've got 3 people that came forward for appointment, we have 3 seats vacant. But, and I told him, I said, this is no fault of your own, and he had said, well, normally the town reaches out to me to let me know my term's expired. And I said, well, it's probably because the website's got it listed wrong that they didn't reach out to you. So I wanted to reach out to him to see if he was planning on seeking reappointment. He said he was. So, I mean, and I reached out to Mr. Sarantopoulos. Unfortunately, I left him a voicemail, didn't hear back. But Ms. Gloria reached out to Mr. Thurlow, Mr. Card, and Mr. Sarantopoulos today. Mr. Thurlow did say he is going to seek reappointment. Mr. Card reiterated that to the town manager as well, that he's going to seek reappointment. So me talking about the term's expiration, in a sense, it's a whole, like I said, it's a wrinkle that throws a whole big mess into this.
Well, could we possibly take the reappointments, discuss those, and leave the alternate positions open for the time being? Then we know, until we get this quagmire that we're in with the existing regular members. Or are they starting out brand new? They're not doing a reappointment, or are they starting because the terms have expired? How does that?
They would be going for reappointment, just like any other, you have, just like your other boards and commissions that are coming for reappointment, because their terms are expiring, they would be considered a reappointment. And so they would be coming before you as a reappointment. And, that's possible. You could decide to go through the reappointment piece and then table these until you get to where you land with your reappointments, and then make your decisions from there. That's a possibility as well.
I like the thought of that, what Ed had said. I also thought, I could be wrong, in the past, if someone was a member of a board or commission and they didn't file to reapply and their term expired, but they were still going to meetings, they just continued going and
They
there was
do.
no,
Correct. They can continue their duties until either reappointed or the
They-
position is filled.
whether they quit on
So-
their own or,
Or whether
Yeah.
once their term is expired, the council can appoint somebody else into that place without having to get a formal resignation. So they can, but they still hold the seat until the position is otherwise filled, right? So, and that's why we sometimes do have it where, a person's term expired, but they don't make it before the council until 6 months later. There's no issue with the meetings and their participation in those meetings because they're still holding the seat until otherwise filled. So, given the nature of the historical challenge, the historical error that was made with the terms, that's why the town attorney recommended that those three positions be allowed to proceed with a reappointment process, and not have them deemed vacated seats until you get through your reappointment process, and to have the two positions that are truly vacated be considered vacated, and then your alternates.
Sounds like what Kevin is saying is basically coming true. Those three were never notified that they were not eligible, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they sat in, they did their job until they're notified that so that should be that's a no-brainer, they're fine. They
Correct.
just reapply like normal.
Right.
Yep.
We move forward, we get the rest of the seats filled,
Right.
and we progress instead of regress.
Right, so basically, the recommendations tonight, you're looking at your alternate positions and, potentially two regular members. It's a matter of, you have two people that are new, that are applying for the commission, and it's a matter of whether or not the commission, the town council wants to appoint one of those people as a regular, or both of them as alternates to the planning zoning, knowing that, to be honest, with the one vacant position, one of them will they'll alternate, but one of them will sit as a regular member through this time period, in order for the commission to function. So, just like Mike's been doing since he was originally appointed as an alternate, because they've had a member that hasn't been able to attend, he's been serving as a regular member pretty much at every meeting during that duration.
Sounds like we just clean it up tonight and call it a day. I mean,
Well,
it
it's a-
seems like a lot of words for 1 year.
It depends on how you want to appoint. So Norm or Lorraine, are you appointing them both as alternates, or is one gonna get appointed as a regular member and the other one an alternate? That's really the decision, or table it all and table that piece and see where you land. But, so your motion that you have before you that I have listed is for Norm to take the vacant regular seat 3. That's the motion that's on the floor.
Yes.
And the debate is whether or not he is appointed as a regular member, or he is appointed as an alternate, because at the time of interview, it was only one regular member position open and 2 alternates. And so that was kind of what they came in with as the
Right,
thought
but
process,
The motion
so.
has been made.
Correct,
It- it
agreed, I'm
shows as
just,
a regular.
that's
Move
what
forward with
the,
that
Yeah.
and see
Just-
where it all pans out.
what the logistics is.
And I know Mr. Grandelski was looking to say something. You had your hand up.
Well, if they were, both Norm and Lorraine were appointed as alternates, would they have to re-interview for the regular position?
Yes.
Since they,
Not, so they wouldn't have to re-interview if it's within a year. So the policy that we have been operating under is that just like
That's-
you have a member you have a person on your list for reappointment that they were interviewed earlier in 2024. It's been under a year since that interview, so they don't end up having to re-interview. If it goes over a year, Mike Huco is literally 1 month over a year, then they come back before as an interview. So it depends on when that gets triggered as to when they would apply, when they would put that, if they would have to come back for an interview. So if it's within a year, no.
so if we appointed Norm and Lorraine as alternates, took care of the regular members, got them for reappointment, and if they decided, one of them decided not for reappointment, it would make it easier, so we could move both to regular. This is nuts.
A lot of assumption.
Or we just
So-
vote on it tonight and
Yeah.
let the chips fall where they fall.
So I would, given that's on on the table, I would, how would I vote? Would I abstain or? I would vote no right now to appoint Norm as a regular, but I would vote yes as an alternate.
But we need to deal with the one motion on the floor.
Right. So how do we?
That motion, you can
Can
keep
be
the motion as
amended.
it is, you could amend the motion, or you could vote on the motion. So those are the three options.
Or we
You
could withdraw the motion.
So let me ask you this, if the other guy that couldn't get in comes, do we have 3 alternate positions?
Yes.
We do have
We do.
3 alternate positions.
And my whole point is giving, these are people that haven't actually sat on the P and Z, hasn't seen the kind of regulations that they have and the coursework that comes with being on the P and Z. It's not an easy commission to be a part of. There's a lot of reading and there's a lot of studying and research you have to do.
But the big thing from my point, they would not have to re-interview,
No.
so
Yes.
that's a
That's it.
critical.
That's it.
If they had to
You know, in
re-interview,
six-
then
in
that
6
gets to
months,
be
they could
another
say, I
layer
want-
of.
in 6 months, they might say, hey, I'm comfortable being an alternate. Maybe in 6 months, they say, hey, I think I can have something to offer.
So,
So-
So the point is, they wouldn't have to re-interview, but it would still come before the council to
Yes.
change them from an alternate to
Yeah.
a regular member.
so they basically that is an interview.
No.
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 There would
Oh,
be
they
no
just
interview.
apply,
It would
Send
be
the
on the
application
regular
in.
meeting agenda like we have.
Okay,
tonight
that's what I'm
for
thinking, all right.
item, G, 10G, he's up for reappointment, but he doesn't have to come to interview because he's been interviewed within the last 12 months.
Okay.
So the thing I want to add in, because I know Kevin had talked about the filling seats that are expired. It's critical to have the ability to fill a seat of a position that the person hasn't submitted a resignation for, but their term's expired, because you can have a situation where someone moves out of town, does not resign, or they just stop coming to meetings. And then if they don't come forward and resign, you have a vacancy, you, in a sense, have a vacant seat that without the ability to fill that seat once the term expires, you would then run into issues with quorums, because you could have 1 or 2 people that just stopped coming to meetings, haven't resigned, their term's expired, but if you don't have the ability to fill an expired term, it can create all sorts of problems. So there is a reason to have that there, to fill a seat that's, and I'm in no way, shape, or form saying to do that right now with Mr. Card's seat, with Mr. Sarantopoulos' seat, or Mr. Thurlow's seat, because they didn't come forward for reappointment because they were never notified that their term had expired.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But if we appoint Norm and Lorraine as alternates, we wouldn't have a quorum issue at P and Z because they would be available to move up to regular. Clean up the regular spots. And should one of them not want to be reappointed to regular, that would make, that,
I
will
make
say-
a motion, I'm sorry. I'd like to amend the motion to make Norm a alternate tonight.
I'll second that.
So we do have multiple alternate terms. At this point, we have 3 alternate vacancies with Mr. Hugo's appointment to a regular member. So,
Alternate member 1 and 2 are January of 2024 to December of 2023. And al-
2026.
2026, sorry, 2023. Let's go backwards in time. And alternate member 3 is January of 25 to January 27. So if you want to keep them on the same terms,
December 27.
27.
I don't think that.
Why do I keep doing that?
Then
I'd
we
like
don't
to
create
make-
another problem.
Make the
Then-
motion to, now, that doesn't have anything to do when a person becomes a regular, that would just.
Correct.
That is
I'd like to
correct.
make it to be alternate number 3. Make a motion that Norm is alternate number 3. That's January 2025, right?
January
25
25
to
to
27.
December
Yeah,
of
that's what
27.
I'd like to
yes.
make that motion.
Okay.
That's my new motion.
Yep.
Okay, that,
Okay.
So
So,
Wait a minute.
if I can, I just want to make sure for record-keeping purposes.
Yep.
This is what I just
or
want
it'd
to
be
make
better
sure.
maybe, Michelle,
If
if you withdraw the
Michelle-
first motion.
If you,
I withdraw the first motion.
and so my second on that was Andy, do you agree with that withdrawal?
No.
Okay, so then you have to amend it.
okay. So
Okay,
so we
that's all.
have,
So you have an
Michelle?
amendment on the
Yep.
floor for Michelle is amending her motion to make Norm Farren alternate number 3, which is January 1st of 2025 to December 31st of 2027. I have that seconded by Mr. Grandowski.
hang on, Robert's rules. The person that makes the original motion can't amend their original motion. Someone else has to amend it, correct?
I don't know off the top of my head.
As long as we can,
Sorry.
somebody else do it.
You're withdrawing?
I'm withdrawing.
So Andy's withdrawing.
That made it easier.
Michelle's making a new motion.
I'm withdrawing.
Yep, so.
You're, no,
Yep.
you, so you both have
They
withdrawn the
both-
original.
I'd like to
Withdrew the
make a
motion and a
motion
second.
that Norm Farren be elected, appointed a number 3 alternate for planning and zoning.
Which the term would run from January 1st of 2025 to December 31st of 2027. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
I'll second.
You seconded,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
We have our
mo-
first and we
yeah.
have the original second. We're good.
Oh, okay,
I
all
got
right,
you.
okay. I
So
want to
motion
make
was
sure
made by
that,
Ms. Murphy, seconded by Mr. Grandelski. So
Thank
this
you
is
for
the new
saying that,
motion.
Ed.
well,
Okay, thank you.
it's, yeah, that's what the other thing. So I'm trying to clean,
You dare ask for discussion.
this is not,
Yep. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Andy was-
We have, okay, we do have one no. Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on the agenda. The next item up is item 10C. Lorraine Lagarde is seeking appointment as a regular alternate member of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
What number?
I will entertain a motion to appoint Ms. Lagarde as an alternate member to fill alternate 1 with a term running from January 1st, 2024 to December 31st of 2026.
I'll make that motion.
and I'll second.
Motion was made by Ms. Murphy, seconded by Mr. Sorry, Mr. Grandelski. I will open up for discussion.
Lorraine did say that she would listen to the people, and she believes that they should participate in the planning and zoning, their workshops. And any of the questions that she wasn't sure about, she didn't answer those, so that was good.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, we're on a roll now. Next item up is item 10D. Michael LaHoo is seeking reappointment to the Board of Rec. As a regular member, his term would run from January 1st, 2025 to December 31st of 2026. Now, Ms. Caloria, just to clarify, those are the correct terms for this?
Those are correct.
Okay.
We did recheck all of those.
Thank you. He had attended 2 out of 3 meetings in 2024 and 4 out of 5 in 2023. The Board of Rec currently has no vacancies. Again, the terms run for 2 years from January 1st through December 31st. Can I get a motion to reappoint Mr. LaHue?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Ms. Wakefield, seconded by Mr. Gamatista. Discussion.
Mike's a very active member. He puts a lot of input in. He attends the meetings, goes to the functions and activities in town. And it's his birthday today, so it'll be a little happy birthday for him if he gets reappointed. So you can keep on working, Mike.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next item up on the agenda is item 10E. Marcel Lucier is seeking reappointment to the Permanent Building Commission. As a regular member, his term would run from December 16th, 2024 to December 15th, 2028. Mr. Lucier has attended 10 out of 15 meetings in 2024 and 9 out of 17 meetings in 2023. The Permanent Building Commission currently has no vacancies, and their regular terms run for 4 years from December 16th to December 15th. Can I get a motion to reappoint Mr. Lucier?
I'll make that motion.
Motion was made by Mr. Cottula. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Wakefield. Discussion.
Some of his meetings that he had missed was because he had his knee replaced, so he was out. And some of these meetings also they spring up kind of quick with walkthroughs and change orders, so. But he's a very important member on that committee.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 10F. Stuart Rivers is seeking reappointment to the Permanent Building Commission. As a regular member, his term would run from December 16th, 2024 to December 15th, 2028. Mr. Rivers attended 12 out of 15 meetings in 2024 and 16 out of 17 meetings in 2023. Can I get a motion to appoint Mr. Rivers, or reappoint Mr. Rivers?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Mr. Cottula, seconded by Mr. Grandelski. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, and I apologize if I mispronounce his name. 10G, Jared Peachy is seeking reappointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals. As a regular member, his term would run from February 1st, 2025 to January 31st, 2030. Mr. Peachy was recently interviewed by the Town Council in May of 2024, which is why he didn't have to interview last week. He attended 4 out of 4 meetings in 2024 since he was appointed, and the Zoning Board of Appeals currently has 3 alternate member vacancies. The regular member terms run for 5 years from February 1st through January 31st. Can I get a motion to reappoint Mr. Peachy?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion was made by, yes, after I have motion and second. Motion was made by Mr. Cottula, seconded by Ms. Wakefield. Discussion.
So I have a discussion in regards to the entire zoning board of appeals. I have heard several comments that if you need something changed, just go to the zoning board of appeals because they approve everything. I have attended the zoning board of appeal meeting or listened to them, and I believe that they need a lot of training. There have been a lot of particularly setback changes that were pretty devastating, changing from 25 feet to 5 feet. They're supposed to be making these changes based on individual basis, and some of the reasoning was, well, we've done this before, so we're going to approve it. Some of the residents applying for these setback changes or garage additions were because this is convenient for us, oh, I don't want to wreck my patio, and those were the basis of how these applications were approved. So I would hope that, this is my second request, that the Zoning Board of Appeals does have a lot of education, because it is another very important commission.
Thank you. I agree. It is an important commission. It's important that all our board and commission members have necessary training for their positions. When you in a position like that, you can actually set a precedent, which makes it difficult to backtrack from. And I know one of the things that's a requirement is to show hardship. So it's one thing I will, Ms. Colorio, if you can look into when the last time members on ZBA had any kind of training. I think it, and I've heard other comments about how they approve everything. So I haven't had time to dive into that to look if that's an accurate statement or not. But if you could look into training, see when the last time they had training was, and definitely make sure that all our board and commission members have adequate training. Any other comments? Mr. Grandelski.
I concur with what you're saying, and I think it should be across the board to all of our boards and commissions, that we could have some updates or whatever, somewhat particular, but I think we need to have some more educational, what's going on, legal, meet with the legal people, legalities of certain things and other specifics. And I think we should expect that our members would want to entertain going to and getting what is going on, especially in the legal world. Yes, again, they have the power to make those decisions, so it puts it in a situation where maybe they're not aware of what is out there, and again, this is the status quo. Okay, we're on the board, just rubber stamp. But, I don't want to dissuade somebody, because they got to put in time when they're on the board, but we need people to understand the positions that they're in, and hopefully they can make the right decisions with respect to the best interests of the town. So we can offer training to them. I think that's what would be a good avenue for
Thank you.
everybody.
Yeah. And it will help not just new members, but also sitting members when you have regulations and statutes that they have to follow that change from year to year. And if they haven't been trained on any changes, they may be making decisions based on old information and without having the current information if they haven't been trained properly. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Motion carries. We'll now move on the agenda. Next item up is reports from liaisons. 11A, Board of Education Liaison. Mr. Naparata.
Good evening, everyone. It's been a little while. So we had a meeting last Wednesday on January 8th I'll just give you some updates here. For the fiscal subcommittee, coming up in a couple of weeks, we're starting our budget process. So there are budget meetings specifically on, just for the budget, on January 29, February 5, and February 19. And the ad hoc committee on the school mascot, they're still working on some new imagery, and that hopefully they're going to be presenting to the board some of the options that they have at this point. There was a change with the board leadership last week. Mr. Rivero has decided to step down as the vice chair for personal reasons, and Ms. Meredith Gambatista was voted in as the vice chair, effective immediately. For the superintendent's update, we adopted the new calendar for the upcoming year for 2025 to 2026. The other update is in this building, EastCon is leaving the upstairs at the end of this year. And starting in the fall of '25, Killingly Public Schools will be offering Therapeutic Academy upstairs, some special ed. Hopefully, we're going to be bringing some students back into town and not outsourcing so many. And there will be the possibility for growth in the future to take in other students from other sending towns. Some new curricula coming up in the elementary to the middle school for reading, to streamline that reading curriculum from the early elementary up through 8th grade. At the high school, they're adopting an AP course in statistics and an AP pre-calculus, just trying to, again, increase the offerings to all the kids. And we've had a lot of meetings with other local boards of ed recently. Our superintendent, Dr. Nash, has been attending meetings at Sterling and Brooklyn, and she's in talks with Woodstock. So there's a lot of schools that are interested in sending to Killingly at this point. That's it. It's been fairly quiet for the last month with holidays and everything.
Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions?
Hi, Kyle. With EastCon leaving, is that a financial impact to the BOE's budget? I know there was some sort of a trade-off with them
Yeah, there was a
upstairs.
trade-off, yes. There will be some impact. That hasn't really fully been presented to us yet as to what it will be. But yeah, there certainly will be an impact.
Okay, thanks.
I don't know if, I know Dr. Nash actually announced when we were on Winnie on Monday, the very prestigious honor given to the football team. They're actually selected was an elite out of all the football teams, is the Football Association.
Yeah,
Anyways, they're going to the Breakfast of Champions on
Yes.
Saturday
Yes,
to be honored by the Walter Camp Association. So-
thank you for bringing that up. Michelle?
Kyle, do you know when that folk thing is? Did I miss that? The fundraiser, the people who do the donations?
The Friends of Learning
The Friends
Killingly.
of
Yeah.
Learning. I don't have that. I can try to find out.
Okay, yes, we got that.
You have that?
Yes, somebody has it, but thank you, Kyle.
Okay.
As long as I-
Any other questions? Mr. Naparata, thank you for coming forward.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, and listening again to everything that you guys do. Thank you for all of your time. You have quite a variety of things that you have to handle, so thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Moving on in the agenda, next item up is 11B, Borough Council Liaison.
So the Borough Council, we haven't had a whole lot of, it's been pretty quiet. The truck is still scheduled to be, is on task, and I believe it might actually be a little under budget. I know that we were actually contemplating making a capital list on different projects to do around the historic fire station There is some work that needs to be done, so we're debating how we're gonna pay for that and plan for that. As always, we're always cognizant of any of the, I think our appeal with the water company is still in, we're working, they were supposed to give us a rate change. Seeing all the hydrants, or the hydrant water that comes out of the hydrants is paid for by the borough itself, so, I'm going to encourage everybody to strongly attend the Pura 101 in February, just so people begin to understand, we do have, there's a way to kind of keep things going, but Janice has fully taken over as our administrator, Janice Thurlow. Brenda has officially resigned completely. She still lives in town, we still know where to find her if we have a question, but Janice has taken over and she's just kind of flowed right into the job, so things are going well. Oh, and our budgets will be like everybody else, our budgets are starting.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on in the agenda. Next item up is 12A, discussion and acceptance of monthly budget reports, summary report on general fund appropriations for town government. Can I get a motion to accept this?
So moved.
Motion was made by Mr. Grandelski, seconded by Ms. Murphy. Discussion, comments, or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next item up is item 12B. Can I get a motion to accept the system object based on adjusted budget for the Board of Education?
I'll make the motion.
Motion was made by Mr. Cottula. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Wakefield. Discussion, questions, or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Now we'll move on to item 13A, which is the town manager's report. Ms. Gloria, could you go over this?
Sure, so the town hall elevator is officially repaired and functioning. Your future meetings will be moving back to the town hall. We kept this one here because we had already published the public hearing notice for your public hearing tonight. So we maintained this meeting here. But we're back in working order. We are going to be getting a report from the elevator company that really outlines what that upcoming investment is going to need to be in the elevator to keep maintenance and to, if there's any other additional capital work that might need to be done to it. Just an update with regards to the footbridge. Last month, I notified you that we had closed the footbridge due to the bridge abutment deterioration. Engineering is working with a consultant to provide an evaluation and what repair options we may have on that, and what that cost may be. So we're still in that evaluation process. NDDH, Ms. Barclay had requested additional information with regards to the per capita cost and how it related to the other districts. So I did get that information from NDDH and provided it within your packet. The notification that we got with regards to the increase in the per capita from $9.30 to $10.30 is still just an estimate. We haven't received a final that is voted on by NDDH in the upcoming months. But we are, if you look at all the health districts, we are still in the middle of the pack as far as total cost. And again, their increases are largely due to wage adjustments in order to stay market rate to be able to retain employees. It's been a big challenge for the health district. Connecticut Deep, we did receive a notification with regards to a significant environmental hazard that was reported to Connecticut Deep for 400 Hartford Pike, and it regarded a detection in an off-site drinking water well. While the detection was below standards, there was still concern. We are in communication, so this is a Department of Health matter. They will be the ones responding to this. We just got notification because we are the town.
Did they say what it was, Mary?
It's PFAS. So we are working with NDDH and in communication with Connecticut Deep as well with regards to this, and we're making sure that any potential impacted parties are hopefully being addressed appropriately. But the town is not party to this violation. We're just got the notification because it's within our municipality. So I actually met with NDDH today. The next one, tax abatement programs. This is just a reminder. Annually, we have our tax abatement programs that need to be refiled for our homeowners elderly freeze program and our homeowners renters program for the elderly and totally disabled. That application period is February 1st to May 15th annually. Both applications are available on our website. They're also available at the town hall. I think we even have them at the library, but they're all available. I included them in your packet as well. Both programs are income-based. I did include a draft of the budget calendar for all of the budget meetings. I did utilize the same format in which you had done last year, where we met on Saturday for a longer duration, for a longer day, focused on just the town budget, and then had the Board of Education meet in place of your April 1st special town council meeting, have that be for your joint meeting with the Board of Education for their budget presentation. Again, this can be changed. It's just trying to follow the same similar formats, so people that are engaging in the process have some continuity. But if any of these need to be modified, next month is when you set your dates for the public hearing, which is really set, the outline of that is set by charter. The public hearing, the annual town meeting, and the referendum votes, those are all listed in a resolution that you would be looking to adopt for next month, but I wanted to give you an initial draft of the calendar. Lastly, the Lieutenant Governor has been working with the towns, with all the towns. This is an initiative that she has taken on where she wants to do a recognition, an award ceremony and recognition ceremony of our Korean era and Vietnam era veterans. And so we have about 150 individuals that we've identified as Vietnam veterans in Killingly that are Killingly residents, that are living residents still for the ceremony, and a handful of Korean era veterans. When we were on Winnie this week, I also reminded, if anybody is a veteran, knows a veteran of either of those conflicts, either of those wars, if they can reach out to my office to verify that we have your name. We're sending out invitations to all of those, and it's them and any of their relatives or, support people that they want to bring to be part of that award ceremony. It's going to be held on Tuesday, February 18th at 4 p.m. at the high school. And so the Lieutenant Governor is hosting that award ceremony. There's going to be, a number of people involved. So a great opportunity to recognize those veterans and their service. And I listed my monthly meetings that I attended, and again, I was off for about a week and a half during the course of December, so it's a little bit shorter report this month.
Thank you. Now, do we have links on the town's website for the elderly homeowners freeze program and?
Yes.
Okay.
They're on the front page,
Okay.
in the news section.
Are we using the sign at the library to advertise that as well?
I don't know that we have it on the library sign, but I can check about getting that on there. I don't know that we have it on there.
Okay. Two other, while I'm bringing up on the website, A link to the transparency software. I know that's been brought up before. Can we get that?
Make a note.
Put
I
on
thought
there
we had
where-
already, thought we had already had it on there, but I will double check.
The only place I could find it, last time I looked, you had to go digging through news, and there was a link towards the bottom of the news.
Oh, it probably got buried with other things that we already posted. That's the problem with the news section of the website is as you post something new, it drops
gets pushed
everything
down.
down. So
Yep.
I'll have to, I was like, I thought we had put something on there. I will check on that and make sure that we see if we can, we are in the process of transitioning websites.
Yeah, so, yep. One other question I have, update on the Soap Street project with the constabulary. Where are we at on that?
They're moved in, we finalized that project. We're waiting for, I think, just the emergency phone on the exterior to come in. It hasn't arrived yet. Once that comes in, it'll get installed. But, and the other thing that we still have to do is some drainage improvements to the front of the parking lot because of some water pooling that occurs from runoff from the road. That'll be happening over the spring. But they're in there functioning, occupying the space.
Okay, thank you. Any other, Mr.
And
Grandelsky?
we came in under budget
Awesome.
to right now, so that did increase what would go to Westfield Avenue.
Getting back to the footbridge, whatever cost are we gonna look at pretty much next year? Because how far out would that be before they get their report done, or what? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I expect that we probably really won't have a magnitude of options for probably another month or so, 6 weeks before we really, 6 to 8 weeks before we get what the order of magnitude is going to be. So depending on what they come back to us with proposals around or ideas for repair will depend on what direction we go. So, you know, hopefully it's something that we can manage through the repair process versus having to go for a full replacement.
Is there, is that annual, that bridging funding that we got, is that an annual? So we got that other funding for full funding for 3 bridges or something. We had to apply for it.
Oh.
Is that an annual thing?
No, it's not. That was a specific funding option, and that wouldn't apply to this bridge because this is only a pedestrian bridge. So this wouldn't be an option. I know, that would have been really great, 100% funding. They're still in design over 3 of those bridges, and I think it's going to be a while, so it's a streamlined process. But, so I'm not sure yet what the timing would be, what the cost, I'm not sure
Yeah,
what
no,
the
I'm
cost
just
factors are going to be as to whether or not we're going to be, you know, ideally, I would be able to capture that through the capital improvement plan
Okay.
in the budgetary process. That's the goal, is to try and bring those forward through that process.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on the agenda. Next item up is 13B WPCA moratorium update.
Yeah, we kind of already covered a lot of that moratorium update with previous conversation. So, you know, as I said, we're in active negotiation with Frito-Lay with regards to their contract and any potential opportunities through that. We're also, I've had conversations with the Lieutenant Governor, and we've had some really positive conversations with our federal delegates. I'll be meeting with one of our local state representative, our state senator, in the next week or so to start walking through some of that, and I'll be reaching out to our representatives as well once I have an understanding from the federal side, so I know what our state ask is going to be, so we can hopefully look for legislation through there. So we're really trying to cover absolutely every angle in order to shore in or alleviate some of the impact of the moratorium. In an interim, trying to gain ways of gaining capacity in an interim perspective. Even, you know, if Frito-Lay is able to do a substantial investment in their system, that still takes time. And so we have to look at how we can find immediate ways to be able to make interim steps. So those are things that we're actively working through. And again, I will say the chairman of the WPCA has been very active in all of those meetings and in all of those conversations, as well as, you know, our staff is involved, our attorney is involved. We have our consultants also involved in many of the meetings to be able to really run the numbers as we go through and talk about scenarios. So, you know, it is a very engaged group. And the, you know, the angst of the community is not lost on them. If anything, they are just as anxious about everything as well. And so we're really trying to come to some immediate solutions.
With regard to funding sources, like, we're still looking at qualification of a engineering firm.
So we have the design piece, the town has funded the design piece, right? And so we are in the process of selecting a firm, so we've already put out to bid. They actually had a walkthrough yesterday or today, I can't remember which day it was
I think
the
it was
walkthrough.
today, I missed it.
I think it might have been today.
I'm thinking today, yeah.
They were doing a walkthrough for the firms. So they're gonna be going through the selection process for that design firm, and then they'll be able to move into the design phase of this, which the intent, you know, and I think the council was, you know, very forward on this, that, you know, the sooner we can get design plans in place to be able to go for some of the federal money. A lot of the federal money is being awarded only to really shovel-ready, construction-ready projects that are, you know, through design development and almost to construction design, right? And they're ready to go out to bid, because they want to see that that federal money is getting spent and spent in a short period of time. So it helps us in the conversation with our federal delegates that the town has made this investment. Number one, they're seeing a town investment. Number two, they're seeing that we're moving forward with design. Like, we're actively trying to get to a shovel-ready position for funding, so that way, if we're granted funding, we'll be able to move forward in a quick manner on moving forward with that. At the same time, we're still continuing those conversations with Frito-Lay on how that capacity can be managed. So, you know, we're not losing sight of and only going after one avenue. We're not trying to have it, we're really keeping everything wide open, and we're not doing tunnel vision and only looking at one solution. We're trying to look at every opportunity that we may have.
It was brought up during the conversations that there were, the Connecticut Green Bank, and then there's a deadline of, I think it's Friday, for some DEEP design funding.
Well, we've already funded design.
Well,
But I will say, Dave, and again, I have to talk to Dave to find out exactly if the submit button has happened, right? But if we can get reimbursement for some of the design money, let's go after that, right? So he's been trying to work through he's juggling about 4 different applications at the moment. And I don't, off the top of my head, I don't want to give you incorrect information. So I need to touch base with Dave with regards to that one.
you know, because that's critical.
And I'll email you guys.
Because I'm looking at, we come up and stepped up to the plate with the $2 million, luckily we found it. Luckily, Lake Road was available, or I don't know where we'd be right now. But also, if there's other funding, and I don't know, you know, Dave's he's stretched to the limit right now.
Right, but this is a high focus for him.
So I hope
For us.
we are looking at all, even if we get some additional fundings for design, it would be help, because we can put this money elsewhere.
Right.
You know, I'm getting a little feedback that, you know, there's funding sources, but it's the town of Killingley, not just people on the sewers, that we got a lot of other activities that we should be taking care of. So, I get a little conversations that the $2 million is, you know, it's a little, I said, no, if we didn't start it, and the economic hardship that we're gonna have, or lack of economic involvement, it's because we can't have any progress, and that's a big thing. So if we, on the town side, we help to support some of this, so hopefully we can move it closer. Is there any kind of, like, I keep hearing that there's been a number of people interested in coming to town, but as soon as they hear sewer is not available, is there any to put some kind of a dollar amount, what we could be potentially losing? We may not be able to get the individual entities that are thinking about it, because they don't want to, but to help put some pressure on everybody else that we need this, that it's really hurt. Never mind our people that need to upgrade and increase who's already here, but any potential people that can help out on our tax rates, that, I don't know if there's any dollar amount, or how do you even?
I don't have a dollar amount off the top of my head. I can work with Jill St. Clair on developing what that might look like. I know that she has some preliminary around that we have shared with some of our federal delegates. So I will see what information that we can disclose around that on a public forum.
And you can't even look at other sites or anything else, because this is, I'm looking at, the industrial park is pretty full, but we have other places here and there that might be able to take something, but they're just walking away, and so there's a lot of action with respect to that moratorium. And again, Frito-Lay, they've been a good neighbor. Yes, originally they've been with us since they came in. Whatever we negotiated, they're there at the table. I think they've helped it along, even though they're our biggest user of the facility. But they do pay their share. So if we can somehow make something else happen, if they can somehow come up with taking a percentage of the total flow, not just the clean water, but if they take with the solids and everything else, if they can reduce some of that, it would be great. I did get a number of phone calls. Why do we not tie into Putnam? They said, we ran the water line when they built Tracy Road. Why can't we do the same and tie into Putnam sewer plant? Just throwing that out, But that's costly too, so.
Ms. Barclay.
If you look at the map for the state of Connecticut for the federal funding, this northeast corner gets very little federal funding for anything. And like Peter had said, this is our tax dollars and Connecticut tax dollars that are not coming to this corner of the state. There have been other municipalities that have gotten funding for sewer design. And you can look at the state map and it'll tell you which one it is. But this corner itself is getting very little funding from the federal funding for anything at all.
So to that point, that means tax dollars from Killenly that become federal money are going elsewhere other than back to us.
Correct.
Well, that's why any opportunity, if the Fed people, if Murphy and Blumenthal are out at a function, you kind of got to just, oh, by the way, we're out in Never Never Land over here. Can you help us out? In a nice way. How do you approach these guys? If you're
I
in some-
approach them all the time and as often as I can.
Well, no, I'm
Every
not
time
saying.
you get to a microphone, when they're in a room, that's what you
Well,
bring up.
that's what I'm saying. If we are in a function somewhere, you got to try to throw a tidbit out, but it's tough to get close to them. But somehow we got to, okay, we're out here. Hey, don't forget us. And you never know that a little bit of engagement can go a long way.
And I do want to add, I've gotten feedback similar to what Mr. Grandelsky has about the $2 million for the sewer plant, and when not everyone in town is on the sewer. The other thing I got pushed back from is how much is Brooklyn contributing to the design phase? So I've heard similar comments to what you have and gotten some pushback on. And the thing I say is it does impact Killenly as a whole, because the businesses that we can't bring into Killingly because there's no sewer capacity does impact Killingly as a whole, because that's tax revenue that could be coming in to benefit the whole town. That's one response I have when I've had that brought up is, in a sense, there is a way that it does affect it. So, the whole town.
And timing is really of the essence. We, whatever chance we get, any time, Courtney coming town to town, looking at the sewer plant, that was good. I've seen him at a couple other, instances. Okay, and his staff is very well aware of what's going on here. They're already on board. It might take him a little more time, but again, the staff members are really, engaged. A couple of other people that call the staff, they're on a first-name basis, so at least we've got something going on, and so we're doing, even some regular citizens are getting involved in this and making some traction, going out of their way and in a positive way, not creating, not any disrespect or anything like that, but all, whenever they see them at social functions or whatever, and hey, we're here,
Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll move on the agenda. Next item up is item 14A, consideration and action on an ordinance to amend the Killingly Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration by adding sections 2-164 through 2-166, a special commission vision committee ordinance. Can I get a motion to adopt this ordinance?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Mr. Cottula, seconded by Mr. Gambatista. Ms. Clory, could you go over this?
This is the ordinance. This ordinance was further reviewed. This has been before the council several times, but reviewed by the ordinance subcommittee on December 2nd and recommended to the town council for full approval. Tonight was the public hearing on this ordinance, on the creation of this. It establishes a vision committee that would be 9 members of the special committee with 3 alternates. The commission has a sunset date of December 31st of 2026, which can be extended by the action of the town council, so that's not a hard and fast date. It outlines the terms of the members as well as the anticipated duties of the commission, and the commission gets its directive from the town council.
Thank you. I will open up for questions.
Mary, didn't we have in there that there could be no employees or council members or any commission members on the committee?
So we didn't specifically put that within the ordinance, but that is part of your application review process. So you can reject an application based on those criterias, but we didn't have it, that was not within the proposed ordinance itself. I know that's been a concern of the group, but again, when you go through your application process, if they're part of another board or commission, we would be flagging that to let you know that. And there is no applicants that are town employees.
Yeah, I remember it too, but maybe at some point it got taken out. You know what I mean, in the process. I definitely remember there was a line, because that was a big concern at the initial meeting, that they didn't really want the
Correct.
voices of authority.
Correct.
Authority.
Yep.
How come it got taken out?
Because it was viewed that, I believe, it was, this ordinance subcommittee reviewed this, but that's part of your interview process. You can determine what criteria you need during your interview process, as opposed to having it listed within the ordinance itself.
But if you had it in the ordinance, wouldn't that take that out of the interview process anyway? Kind of solidifies that no town employee, no board member, or anybody could be on there now.
So the
Now you're
board-
leaving yourself open.
Well, the commission members can only, other boards and commission members can only be part of another commission unless, if they are specifically outlined within the ordinance language that allows them to participate. Like Board of Rec, you specifically say that they have a member of Board of Education and you have a member of the town council. Same with open space land acquisition. That committee specifically states within the ordinance that certain members of other commissions are members of that commission. So with absent that language, you can't have another board or commission member by our charter participate in two boards or commissions.
What about town employees? Is it in the charter that they can't be on a board or commission?
So, correct, the town employees can be on a temporary commission, provided they're seated by the town council. But I will say, none of your applications that you have that are pending before you, that will be pending before you, are town employees. None of them are town employees, because everybody has heard very loud and clear that they don't want to have seated town employees on this commission. So none of them have submitted applications.
Now, what would prevent someone who gets appointed to the committee from applying to a job for the town and getting hired?
I would have to go back through our ordinance or our town, well, the council has a restriction on your ability.
Yep.
They could, but then they would have to give up their seat. That would be part of our terms of employment.
Okay, but there's no language in ordinance or charter that would prevent that from happening?
I don't think so. Off the top of my head, I haven't researched it. I haven't been asked that, so I haven't researched it.
Now, I do have one question, and I apologize with everything else with the terms of planning and zoning. I didn't have time to look at this. As far as our other commissions, the wording, because I know that was one of the things that came up, original wording had town managers ex officio, and that language got pulled out, and now it got changed to town manager designated representative. Do we have that language, the town manager or designated representative may attend meetings with full rights of participation in any of the other ordinances for our other boards and commissions?
We don't, but that's the charter language, so that was what was requested to be put in, was the charter language. So this is exact charter language.
Okay, but we have charter language for other boards and commissions that mimics that?
Some, and again, I haven't looked at all of the boards and commissions on their ordinances. Some of them do reference that the town manager has participation, but I don't have a list of which ones. I haven't looked at them all and researched that across all of the ordinances.
That request was made specifically, if I remember right, by Michelle to change the ex officiato. So maybe she can speak on that.
She has actually stepped out for a minute. I did actually.
Oh, sorry, couldn't
Yep.
speak.
I did bring up something about the ex officio because by definition, and I believe it was Robert's rules, an ex officio has the right to vote, but the town charter specifically says that the town manager doesn't have a right to vote. So that was something I brought up as well, but I'm not a member of the ordinance subcommittee, so I couldn't make any kind of motion. So that was me just making a comment.
Yeah, we did want that taken out.
Right, which is why the charter language was put in place.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
I still feel that it should have been worded as we all agreed upon. We should definitely stipulate in there, no town employees, then we don't have to go through the process of wondering if we're gonna approve an application or somebody applies and wants to be a town employee.
And and I was trying to recall, because I did attend majority of that last meeting in December, and trying to recall. I know it was brought up about prohibiting town employees, but I, off the top of my head, couldn't remember, and because it's not available online to look at, because it was in 102, I didn't have any way to reference back to it.
And it does wear its ugly head, because I had the guy put in my new heating system in my building in Norwich. In Norwich, you cannot work for the public utilities and work in Norwich. So he decided to take employment with the town of Norwich and their utilities, so not that it really left me hanging, but it was an issue.
Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
One abstention. Motion carries. Now we'll move on to the agenda. The next item up is 15A, the new business that was added, which was, I can't read my chicken scratch when I write that fast. I believe it was discussion regarding actions of Mr. Grandelsky. Do you remember what your wording was on that?
Yeah, discussion and action regarding implementation of decisions by boards and commissions.
All right, thank you.
The reason I brought this up was, this is with regard to the Hartford Pike project out by Owen Bell. A condition, the zoning, now do I have it? On regular meetings of the Planning and Zoning Commission on November 20th, 2023. As part of the approval process, the document said CTDOT approval be submitted to the town prior to construction, any modifications noted to be completed by the applicant. During the there was an additional discussion before the vote. John Sarantopoulos asked about DOT approval. Mr. Card explained that it had not been received yet and that they have to submit it as a condition of approval. Okay, so this is fine. So I just happened to be getting stuck in traffic when I'm going past the project, and it was a nightmare. So I decided to call DOTs, what's going on? I was across the street fueling up, I wasn't. Then I said, I want to call DOT. Okay, they said they'll pass it on to the inspector. When I was heading back home, I was going to take some pictures so that when I went to Norwich, they would know what's going on. Well, it just happened the DOT inspector was there. And he looked around, he said, yeah, there's issues here, and he made some going to make some recommendations. Then he ancillarily said something about not having a DOT permit. And this was late September. I'm not trying to be mean, I'm not trying to be vindictive, but all of a sudden that got me thinking. So a few weeks later, I'm in Norwich, I went down to DOT, and I says, can I get a copy of the DOT permit? Well, they wouldn't give it to me. John LaBelle tried calling, they wouldn't give it to him. So I keep saying I'm going to do freedom of information, but holidays and everything else, well, whatever. So last week in my mailbox, I get a copy of the DOT permit dated October 1st, 2024. Well, if you've been by the site, there's been construction going on since July without a DOT permit on file here. So I dig a little further, and I go through and I find a zoning permit that was issued in February. We got more paperwork here than I know to, where are we here? Come on. The zoning permit was dated February 16th, 2024. In that permit, under conditions, zoning approval, applicant approved per special permit 23-1314. Copy of CT DOT approval and that the parcels have been merged is required prior to start of construction. I further go along and I get a copy of the building permit that was issued July, I believe. So I have a problem with this. How can, if the Planning and Zoning Commission states in their approval process, you need a DOT permit on file in the town before any construction is done, why did a zoning permit get issued? And again, once a zoning permit is issued, a building permit can be issued, but it's based on this. So we have boards and commissions work diligently, spend their time in the best interest of the town, and what they do is not followed. And I'm very upset over this. I don't know what recourse there is, but I keep getting, when I'm questioning or whatever else, we are following the regulations. Well, as far as my view, I have copies of the documents, any of you guys want to look at it, you're welcome to it. But, and there's been other instances where it's really not clear as to what's going on. And I don't know how clear it can you get when it says DOT permit on file. But the DOT permit is written to the applicant. And then when I look at, but it says received October 4th. Now, the permit is dated October 1, but it says here, received Planning and Zoning Department, October 4th, 2024. So I don't know what's going on. I think we're being, I'm just not a happy camper. If this is happening on this situation, is there other areas where stuff is happening not in accordance with what our boards and commissions are doing?
I was just going to say that this is one instant where they got caught. How many other instances are there where they're not following the rules and regulations brought forth?
This is, or maybe, okay, this is a wake-up call, but I can't understand how a zoning permit can get issued specifically when it's in violation of what the terms and conditions are of the decision by the Planning and Zoning Commission. But then again, too, we get a building permit, but the building permit it is not their function to say, oh, you don't have a DOT permit. That's not, it's all with Planning and Zoning. I guess it's staff. I mean, the commission members acted.
Ed, do you know when the application was submitted to the state?
It'll usually, if you get a
Because the
copy
eight-
of the permit, it'll say on there when it was
Because the
submitted.
816 is funny, and it's, 870 pages long.
No, I
So
got,
there might be some verbiage in there where they have to apply,
well, either way,
and
it's,
contingent on them with their site plan, contingent on their site plan, that they would get the approval.
Well, this office had completed a review of the submitted plans entitled Commercial Development 536, 542, 552 Hartford Pike, Killen, Connecticut, dated January 2nd, 2024. Okay, yeah.
They've applied in January of 2024, and they had actually, DOT, local permitting, had had a number of conversations with our planning and zoning staff. They had relayed, the planning and zoning staff had relayed the concern of the commission about whether or not an additional light was going to be needed, traffic studies, that type of stuff. So there was a number of verbal communications between Connecticut DOT and staff. There was verbally from Connecticut DOT that they were going to be issuing the permit through their time process, but that there wasn't any, DOT did not have any concerns with regards to adding an additional light. That was not going to be a requirement, nor was any major road work, road redevelopment, road modifications needed for that site development. And so they had, verbally expressed that to our planning and zoning staff.
They would have been responsible for
Correct.
making any changes
Correct.
when they occur.
Right.
Now,
Well,
Do you know-
but then you look at this document, okay, if that's the case, dated January 2nd, 2024, and last revised September 5th, 2024. A final determination has been made, and we find the proposal acceptable. So, okay, you're saying they had verbal at whatever. What was it? The specifics of the Planning and Zoning Commission were on file with here.
and
How
to-
clear can anybody be?
And to your point, the exact verbiage is copy of CT DOT approval, which, how do you get a copy of a verbal approval? And also the fact, as Mr. Grandelsky pointed out, the plans were revised, the last revision was submitted September 5th, 2024, which is 7 months after the zoning permit was granted, and 2 months after the building permit was granted. The other question I have, DOT right-of-way. How far into the property does the DOT right-of-way go? Because the DOT permit states that no construction can happen in the DOT right-of-way. And with the amount of cut that was done to that parcel, the cut is done all the way out to 101. Is cutting into the grade like that considered construction by DOT? And I've got a lot of concerns on this as well.
And when I went to get a copy of the DOT permit, that's even, well, when I met with the inspector, I happened to be there, and that's when he brought it up. He says, so, we don't have a permit on this yet. And then I says, well, a condition of this project is a DOT permit is required. And then all of a sudden, he shut right up. Because he says, we do not get involved with private property. So I'm not trying to be an idiot. So it just, whatever. And then finally, I'm start thinking about it. Before I open my mouth, I need documentation. So here it is. Now, how many times have I done things, I'm looking at, the salesman is coming over trying to sell me something. I'm telling you this, and I'm telling you this, and I'm telling you this, and I flip over to the back side of the page, totally contradictory to what he is telling me. If I sign the document, I'm stuck with the verbiage that's there. Now, whatever's going on, additional something happened September 5th. I don't want to be caught in a lawsuit. So I don't think I can change what's going on over there. But the actions, interactions were not in the best interest of the town of Killenly. Luckily, you know, whatever, you know, if something should have happened in between the time and we got entwined in some kind of dispute or whatever, well, there would have been a lot of things going on here. So there has to be changes in policies. And verbal is off the table. Maybe an email. If I get an email, so an email from DOT, yes, we're looking at it, at this, okay. It may not be the 100% of the permit, but I can't take a verbal comment. I'm just. And then I'm thinking again, I was driving by there earlier on. I'm not trying to keep a documentation, a historical daily log of what's going on over there. So I'm driving by and I see the silt fence kind of rolled up on the side, and I happen to bring it forward. Just comment out in the town hall, who's responsible for the silt fence? And all of a sudden, the next day, it's up. You know, or there can't be any excuse, or we didn't see what was going on. That's a highly visible site. You can't be more visible in town, pretty much, than that site.
I will say, staff doesn't drive by that site every day. If they're at training meetings, or if they're at other areas within town, I mean, they don't drive 101 specifically by that site every single day.
It's
There's
still.
There's a lot of town.
I'm not buying that.
I'm just saying,
You can say
I don't know
that
how long I don't know how long the silt fence was down, but I'm just saying,
there was
you know,
there was no silt fence even up. There was nothing by staff going over there, overseeing anything, if planning and zoning put any conditions out there, and it had to be, this is not, the July 23rd date of the building permit, I'm not looking at that. You know, I'll give them some slack, but this is sometime in September, and the silt fence is still not up.
That would have been an erosion plan.
So whatever the case might be, no one's looking out for my interest here. I go to the meetings, I went to the meetings on this, pointing out all kinds of, I was pretty much disregarded. This is, you know.
I do have a question, Ms. Colorio. Difference between doing site work and the definition of construction. At what point is it site work that's allowable without a permit, and at what point is it construction?
so site work generally, and again, I'll be general about this because I don't have the exact definitions in front of me between the building code and regulations, but site work can be removal of trees, debris, demolition can even, you have to do a demolition permit, but that can even be considered generally part of site work. Usually when you get to, and I will say even in the construction, for a lot of for most properties, foundation does require building permit. However, if they are waiting for other approvals, and I'm not talking about this site, I'm talking about in general, if they're waiting on a minimal approval for something else, and the property owner wants to proceed with something for whatever timing, we need to get it done because whatever, we're getting into winter or something like that, and it's going to further exacerbate the project. If they were to pour a foundation, it's completely at their own risk, right? So if we go back in and say, nope, doesn't comply, you gotta rip it all out, that's at their own risk, right? But site work is generally your earthwork, if you will, right? It's generally your removal of trees, stumping, I mean, that would even get into sediment erosion planning that would have to be in place, but essentially clearing your lot is kind of considered site work. Without having those definitions right in front of me and ingrained in my head.
So the foundation would consider construction?
Yeah, because I mean, generally you're at needing to do building permit. But I don't know, like, I need to go back and look at what the building code actually considers that versus like zoning and stuff like that. Like, I don't have those definitions in front of me.
Now, as far as, once the foundation's done, would there need to be a inspection done prior to any construction of walls or anything like that?
Yeah, usually there's inspections done throughout the process of a foundation, generally.
Does the town keep record of dates on those inspections?
I'm assuming so. I don't have those, I don't have that information. I can't answer those questions
Well, I'm just
without the
asking-
file. So
well,
I mean, you're asking very specific, detailed, date-orientated
Well,
questions that I
I'm-
don't have the information for.
Typically, you're gonna go in, you're gonna excavate. First of all, to your point, sill fence goes up first, temporary fence goes up next. Whatever you're gonna grub and excavate, you're gonna bring it down to whatever subgrade's gonna be. You're gonna dig your foundation, you're gonna do a compaction test, or if the soil's fine, you have your first inspection for your footings, second inspection for your walls, then it's gonna be your underground utilities, depending on how they do the foundation. You'll get all that, then you'll do your wall, then there'll be a lag, and then all your walls will go up, your framing will go up, you do a framing inspection, and so on and so forth.
And then you continue with all the different sub-inspections that occur.
Right, after all the
Correct.
framing and.
Right, correct.
I'd like to, if you can get us information as far as any of the inspections and the dates they were done, especially relevant to when DOT approval actually happened, when the permit was issued, and and actually, if you look at the wording of the special permit approval, and the zoning permit and the building permit, it was a copy of DOT approval. And as Mr. Grandelski said, I mean, if when you start looking at the wording that was approved at the special permit, it was DOT approval be submitted to the town, and I don't see how a town staff contacting DOT would be approval being submitted to the town. To me, something being submitted is an email, a letter, documentation that would come in from DOT or from the applicant that he had received from DOT, not the town calling up and saying, hey, what are your thoughts on this project? So, but, and as Mr. Grandelski said, planning and zoning spent a lot of time on reviewing the special permit. And for their conditions not to be followed, if that's exactly what happened, depending on dates and what is considered construction, what isn't considered construction, that would definitely concern me that they're dedicating all this time, and they're volunteers. And they've allowed for the special permit based on certain criteria. And I look at even the DOT permit has clauses where it's contingent on 2 other things that had to happen. They had to submit, I believe one of them was, they had to submit some other documentation. And even in the DOT permit, it says construction cannot begin in a DOT right-of-way until these criterias are met.
See, that's where I think when the DOT inspector is looking at this, and the comments that he had that day when he was out there, it was like, whoa, we got to get this going because things are happening here. Where is that line from the DOT right-of-way and the private property? I'll bet you the DOT right-of-way line was violated.
And that
And they
comes
finally
down to-
forced the issue that they better get going. But now, I'm a jerk again because I'm asking for a piece of paper and nobody wanted to, why was I not given it? It should have been free, freely given to me, whatever it was. And I can't, I'm not trying to keep track of the day. I guess now I'm gonna keep a log of what's going on.
I don't think it was created when you asked for it. A lot of this is over my head. The only thing I don't like about it is if planning and zoning issues and only do this, start building or whatever, under these conditions, then the conditions should be met. That's all. It's like sloppy.
Well,
Yeah.
there's other issues with the developer. I'm not quite sure, but they had asked about sidewalks, and I believe they said that the sidewalks would go into the DOT right-of-way, so they wouldn't be able to put the sidewalks in. And I'm not sure about where the building is, because for a village commercial, it's supposed to be in the front, and there's supposed to be no parking in the back. The issue was, they said there was because of the grade of the land, but they took that all the way down to the ground. So there's another issue about what fill was going to be removed from the property. So that's, that whole project, not following village commercial, the special permit was only for a drive-through. That was said many, 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 many times, that that's the only thing that the public hearing is about, and there's many, many issues with this whole project.
I'll read right from this, to that. The special permit, one of the other condition separate from the DOT approval being submitted to the town was acknowledgement of the waiver granted by Planning and Zoning Commission to allow parking in front of the building, and this goes to what you said, due to the configuration of the land and layout of the building. So there is another piece to this, the special permit, not just the drive-through. The parking was another piece.
They took it down to the ground.
And I remember that being brought up because I was at one of those meetings where the developer was discussing the need to put the parking in the front, and I remember elevation being brought up. And at this point, that elevation isn't what it was before. I don't know if things changed after that meeting, because that wasn't when it was approved. I was there at one of the earlier meetings. I think it was August of, not last year, but the year before now. We're looking at '23, so.
Nothing was brought up at planning and zoning meeting.
And to Mr. Grandelski, as far as what was done in the DOT right away, and that may come down to what the state's definition of construction is. Site work may or may not be considered construction. Cutting the grade down
You
may
need
or
a
may not
DOT
be.
permit to you go in there right away, you need a DOT permit. Many years ago, I was approached by the engineering department here. They were doing some sidewalks in Davis Park. So it just happened that I did a bunch of sidewalks across the street, so I was quite aware of what was going on. So I'm looking at the drawing, and within the discussion, and I see this line on the drawing. What is this? Oh, that's of no consequence. On further review, it was the DOT right-of-way. The applicant is responsible for the DOT to apply for the permit, but the drawings and, so this is not the first time I've seen this, but now I have some documentation. I was involved with this project to, looking at what was going on. I don't think it was the best interest to the town, okay? I went along. Now I see a major violation. Maybe we should go back and look at Brookside Drive when I was first on the council. The conditions of the P&Z commission members were such. Well, you have to approve it because they didn't meet I guess the slope is too high in the road. There is not a bus stop place at the top of the driveway. The road is too narrow and the cul-de-sac doesn't work. But had I known then what I know now, that would have been a no vote on my part, because the conditions of the Planning and Zoning Commission were not met. Again, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I should have at that point, I should have done that then, and we probably wouldn't be here now. So some point in time, follow the rules. Or, follow the regulations, that's what I get all the time. So, whatever it is, maybe it's got to be no zoning permit to be issued until, if a DOT permit needs to be had, you don't issue a zoning permit until the DOT permit is issued. Be a little more, maybe we all expect certain things, I don't know. But again, this said DOT.
Yeah, Ed, I think it depends on the project. If planning and zoning doesn't specify submission, blah, 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 and they normally sometimes have verbal, then it seems to me, it's normal procedure unless they specified, but they specified.
This is
Yeah.
specified.
So that's what I'm saying, so that's
You know,
what makes it kind of.
If we're not following, you get the commission members working on things, and then this happens.
Could we get the first inspection of the footings?
Yeah, I'll pull the building permit file,
Thank you.
and I'll make a copy of it.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Do you have any plan of action, or you just wanted to bring it to attention? Like, if it seems like sometimes things aren't quite, what, do we need to meet with, staff, or do we, what, does anybody have any ideas of action?
So
It'd be
staff
nice
would-
to have a sequence of
A
events.
timeline, yeah.
You know what I mean? Just so, it may all be not an issue, but it'd be nice to have that sequence, because the information you're getting me, is getting me all fired up. I do know the DOT side, because that's what Middlesex, that's basically what we did on the road, so I know kind of how that flows. But it's hard to get the concept of, without saying, okay, this is what happened, this is what didn't happen, this is what didn't happen, this is what didn't.
But again, I'm looking at,
So P and Z gave the approval to build this building.
Contingent on two conditions.
P and Z, they're November 20th, 2023. But the DOT permit comes in October. The zoning permit is issued February.
But they applied when, Mary, for that permit?
February
For
1st.
DOT permit?
January of
January
2024, yeah.
2024, and they started construction around September-ish.
July.
End of
well,
July, I want to say.
Site work, July.
They were doing
whatever.
site work in July. I don't
I think you
recall
need
when
just a
everything was.
sequence of events, and it might just
Yeah.
make,
That's
Yeah,
fine.
but then again, too, why, okay, you issue all of this, but it's such a big, time frame from when the zoning permit was issued. Verbal, I can't buy that, the verbal stuff is just, I'm missing something
well,
there.
the zoning should have never been issued.
That's,
It should have
again,
never been issued.
right
If they
there.
didn't have all the information, they should have never issued a permit, because if staff would have made their due diligence, which it sounds like they were in communication with the DOT, which DOT basically gave them a verbal that it's okay, because the DOT's not gonna let them open anything without full inspection and full operation. That's just not gonna happen. They'll shut them
Well,
right down.
I think this happened here. I think, but I can't
Yeah,
say.
but they-
But the
they're not
inspector,
open, right?
I
the
can't-
inspector
they're not
didn't
open.
shut them down that day either, and I've seen the inspector, like, if they were completely unaware, the inspectors shut down
Oh,
sites
God, yeah.
all the
That's
time in a
red hot
heartbeat.
second.
So for an inspector to be there and leave the site and leave it not shut down,
Yeah.
DOT was involved.
Yeah, I mean, as for the silver.
Well, again, they're not involved
I
with the
would've pushed it
building,
to the
and
limit.
DOT inspector doesn't care about this condition in this application. They're just looking at DOT's best interest. I am looking at the best interest of the town, that if there's a condition like this that says DOT permit on file, that means no zoning permit is issued until all the conditions are met. Because once you issue the zoning permit, that means all bets are off. Go ahead. Let's be reasonable here. I don't want this happening again. And if there's a question about interpretation, they start looking at this, but
Well, the interpretation would have been gone if they had the DOT permit. And not just
but
give-
the permit is through the applicant, not through the town.
Which it should be.
Right. So now, the town is doing with this, they're not involved in that. The town should not be in, unless the DOT asks a question, but to ask for, can we proceed? No, that's not for them, that's not their decision to make. Given this, even these guys are at fault. I have totally lost respect for a lot of people. And this is kind of the backing of that now, And I may be,
So,
and I'm not trying to, just,
Michelle, you asked what potential action items the council could take. So the council can direct the town manager to further investigate. The town council wouldn't have the ability to investigate or have discussion with staff. The town manager is the one that oversees
Right,
staff,
that's-
and the town manager is the one that would manage any process under that. So, I have your complaint. I would then do the investigation process, but that process is a closed process. And ultimately, whatever determinations come out of that is a closed process. It is employment-related matters, which is not purviewed.
I think you give us a timeline and go from there.
I can provide you with that information.
And I think it.
But there's
would-
that additional about the grade of the land, the building in the front doesn't follow village commercial, taking it down to ground level when they said, oh, we can't put the building in, in the front because of ground level. And I believe this, when they asked about the sidewalks, they said we're going to be in the DOT right away. We can't do that, it's on a hill.
Did they ask for approval did they move the building?
So, village commercial, the building is supposed to be in the front. The parking is supposed to be in the back. The building is in the back, the parking's in the front, they said because of the grade of the land.
But is that?
That was what was approved by, and that site layout was approved by planning and zoning.
yeah, that's.
And so that was approved by planning and zoning
So it
commission.
should have never.
But
Well,
that was how it was
potentially-
approved.
Potentially. I understand that.
Right, that
So-
was how it was approved. The building did not get moved subsequent to the Planning and Zoning Commission's approval.
So
remember
I don't
they said-
remember that
No,
coming to the
that's right.
planning and zoning. I only remember the special permit for the drive-through coming. I don't remember for the village commercial, because when the people came to the meeting, they were John complaining about the building being cookie cutter, it doesn't follow village commercial. So I don't remember that discussion at a planning and zoning meeting. I only remember the special permit for the drive-through.
Remember they had an issue where they had trouble getting the tractor trailer trucks through because of, on the, I guess, I don't know which way, if you're going towards the Willimantic side, I don't know which north and south, there was a big grade change and they had some retaining walls in between the parking, and they were gonna propose something to remedy getting a tractor trailer through there. But nevertheless, it still had to be approved by planning and zoning. And more so inlands, wetlands, right? Because you're changing, I don't know, because there's a couple sediment ponds back there too. I don't know if the elevation's changed there, so if you're changing the runoff, then you're gonna, boards and commissions must have approved everything.
Well,
That's the point, right? I see, I'm losing the,
yeah.
So
To-
taking it down to the grade down, as we talked about, the developer said that that's why they needed the parking in the front. You know, they would, for the sidewalks, I'm pretty sure they said it would be on the DOT right away. And then they took it right down to ground level. So they
Yes.
didn't follow anything they said.
Here's what I think is weird, as a closed investigation. We're asking all the questions now, and a lot of the things you don't know the answer to. So to me, it seems like it would make sense, like all the other times, when people come in, to be able to say, hey, what about this? And, you know, Jonathan probably goes blah, 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 and kind of knows,
I mean,
you know?
I can give you guys, I can work with staff on giving you a timeline and giving all of that information, no issue with that. I mean, if there's an ask about an employment-related component, that is a closed process.
what about revisions to the plans?
That
I'll
was
get
gonna
you
be my
all of that
next question.
information.
Yep.
You know,
That's
'cause
gonna be
that'll-
all part of this. I will get
That all
you,
should be stamped, right?
I'll get you what the
You know, it
what the
could have been unsuitable
timelines.
soil, I mean, it could be a various,
I can
100
get you
things.
timelines on the information. Again, I don't have that file.
Now, the one question I have, and I'm not in the construction field, so I don't know this. In a situation like this, normal approval, would the grades of the parcel be included in the plans?
Usually, Keith and Brian Card especially asked about how much fill is going to be removed from the site.
So I guess my question would be, if it was in the plans that it was going to be at a certain grade, and they did the construction, and that grade was changed, would that be a violation of the permit, the
Unless it's
special permit?
Well, that was
Yeah,
all
but
done,
that's the
that was
question,
all
is how
done
was it-
before the DOT permit was,
Well, I'm just
yeah,
saying.
you
the-
can't change, what you're saying is you can't change your elevations.
After the permit's approved.
After the permit's
Okay.
approved, you have
Yep.
to submit,
Yeah.
you know, a revision, a revised plan.
Okay, all right, so that would be my question, is the grade that's there now, does that coincide with what was approved by planning and zoning? Or did they change the grade from what was approved at the planning and zoning?
well,
Yes,
that's
I
another
understand your
whole
question.
question.
Okay.
If we have other things that are going on and we are not following what is approved, that's the point of this.
Right. Because if you're changing the
This is,
grade,
this is the only thing I have in writing that, you know,
you're changing the elevation of your foundation, because if you're dropping the grade,
You're
your
dropping the
elevation of the
foundation.
building is going down.
Okay. I have nothing further.
no, I mean, I just, you know, I want to have faith in the people that work for me. And right now, I don't have faith. Because sitting in here, sitting on this, at this table, everybody in town works. Town employees work for me. I didn't like getting all the comments from the public. That's another thing. Anybody I talk to about this job, the traffic, I said, you gotta wait till the DOT. I am trying to sell this thing, and I was trying to do the best I could, and now I get this is thrown in my face. You know, other comments, now, I'm gonna wait till that thing gets built. And other comments that I had at the time, like I threw out the fact that, okay, I have a pickup truck, then a 20-foot bed with a 26-foot trailer. I can't park that in that site. I doubt if I could drive in that site. I doubt if I could go through the drive-in or like the Dunkin' Donuts on the other side, the same thing. if perchance, maybe I'm gonna go and stick my head really somewhere it don't belong, but then again, if perchance the school buses have to park across the street, or if the school buses park in Owen Bell parking lot to go to the Starbucks drive-in because they can't get through this.
First of all, I don't think school bus can go through a drive-through because it would probably rip the roof
Well, I
off.
mean, can they even drive through, get into that site? I brought it up in conversation, with respect to Dunkin' Donuts, with the Shell and the Walgreens. The school buses, I don't care Board of Education, I'm sorry. School buses will park in Zips parking lot and go across the street.
Are they allowed to do that? Yeah.
Why? It's okay.
I'm
It's-
saying-
We're getting off topic.
So anyway, wait a minute, we're designing things, if they want to put these kind of establishments in, and you have a clientele, they should be parking in your parking lot, not, I own the adjacent building, and I'm gonna give up my space to you, no way in hell.
I just think that's separate.
Whatever, it's still.
I like the point, Ed, but I think it's separate from trying to
Oh,
get
this
a
specific-
timeline. and-
Right,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
that's, again, all these things, I made a lot of comments about it, and it was like, screw you. All right, well, now, I got some paperwork here. Somebody didn't do what's going on. We gotta correct the situation so this does not happen again.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll move on in the agenda. Next item on the agenda is 16 council member reports and comments. Ms. Barclay, would you start?
The planning and zoning workshop and meetings were canceled. From the Housing Authority, they get $65 per voucher per month. Low income or housing vouchers are issued, and once you get that voucher, you can move anywhere in the country with it. So they have 223 applications on their waiting list. 54 had failed to respond, 5 stayed on, 14 people no longer needed housing, and then 28 were returned. They had 24 new applications, so the new waiting list is 154. They're looking at the cost of their elevator inspections. It's $13,000 for the 5 and 10-year inspections. They also had asked that the commissioners on the Housing Authority, if they can have 5-year terms to be the same as what the state regulations are, but the town charter, I believe, is 3. And Carol said that would be easier for her if there were 5-year terms. This way she would know that somebody would be on the commission for 5 years and not 3. And it would be help with keeping those positions filled. And their food service cook and a second cook, and finally, the meals for the congregate housing is going well, and they have about 62 meals that they do per day. They had a lot of issues with it for years, so they finally have a good food service, and that's it.
Thank you. Now, the term limits, that was by charter or by ordinance?
So,
It's by ordinance.
by
Okay.
ordinance, but she says She says the state has 5-year.
Okay.
State statute has 5 years. Our ordinance, which used to be in the charter, was 3 years. Because our term limit is more restrictive, our term limit supersedes the state term limit. So she has put in the request that the town consider, so when we pull the next ordinance subcommittee together, that will be on the agenda, and I will make her aware of that because she wants to attend that meeting.
Okay, that's what I was going to request.
Yep,
is
that
goes on
it's on the
next.
list for
Okay.
the next ordinance sub.
Okay, thank you. I attended the meeting at the sewer plant when Mr. Courtney came down, as well as there were several other council members there with me. We had fiscal subcommittee last night, and the cable advisory committee didn't meet last month. The next meeting is tomorrow night. And that's all I have. Mr. Cottula.
I had a conflict, so I didn't get to make the last permanent building committee meeting. I just got a quick comment on last week's meeting with the boards, the interviews during boards and commissions there, that there was that questionnaire, but that wasn't available to all council members. That should have been something that everyone had before the meeting ahead of time, so that we were all, had a chance to look at that, or review that, and so that we knew what was available. But that, I don't think was available to everybody. At least I didn't get one.
Thank you. I got that ready at the last minute, and you're correct, Kevin. I actually had copies for you guys, and I forgot to hand it out in the excitement. But I just finished it at like 4 o'clock. So I saw the school, they already talked about that. I talked about, let's see, wastewater. Their finances are in good condition. They didn't have any violations. They talked about I&I. They're still working on those projects with watertight manholes, waiting for the parts to come in. The RFQ is due back Friday. Do you know how many people participated in that walkthrough, Mary?
I honestly don't know.
Okay, that's all right. The big thing was there was at least half a dozen people there asking to get hooked up with reconnections or mother-in-law apartments, and it's a very tense situation. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Whitehead?
I attended the fiscal subcommittee, as you did, and I will be at the cable advisory committee meeting tomorrow night.
Okay.
Andy,
Thank
did you get a chance to stop in?
I did.
Perfect.
I did.
Thank you.
Mr. Gambatese?
The big book.
I did the walk as you did with Joe Courtney at the sewer plant. It was very interesting. Fiscal subcommittee last evening, and I missed agriculture. I was traveling for work. I was out of town.
Thank you. Mr. Grandelsky?
The Conservation Commission, they were reviewing the logging operation, talking about that up at Chase Road. We talked a little bit again about interaction between wanting to have Quandock as inviting people to go there, but you also have the conflict with hunting is allowed through a permit through the town manager's office, and I look at that and I say, I'm staying away, but then we looked at verbiage. We need to put signage up that alerts both parties of their responsibilities, the hunting group and the people who are just hiking group, that both should be aware of each other. They got to work in harmony and whatnot, and that's why I think you need stuff in writing, and it has to be clear. More so, I think after looking at this, they have an environmental award. I guess that's going to be next month. They have a person offhand, I can't remember that name. And I did attend the walkthrough with Courtney at the sewer plant, and like I said, and then other interactions with some of his staff members were very much engaged. Some of the questions, Courtney's out in front, but we're talking with the staff member, 10 steps behind, and both of them were pretty good, so they're aware, and, trying to throw out stuff, and I guess now we just gotta get to Blumenthal and Murphy and what the big bucks are, but there's all other bucks too. We have to pursue every avenue so that, given the comments that were here about the $40 million and whatnot, and they were not too happy with that, but that's what this project costs. So we've got to, again, our contract with Frito-Lay, if we can get some space somehow there, but even with them, for them, they would have to get DEP approval to do anything over at their facility. So the time frame is not overnight. And that's probably the biggest question I'm getting from everybody is a year or two, and I don't really want to respond because it's more than that. So, however anybody can get together with somebody who has grant money, come on, well, come on down, call Mary, she'd be more than willing to talk to you. It's just, whatever, doesn't have to be a lot, but we'll take every piece we can get. And that's all I have.
Okay. I just do want to add one thing. I don't know if anyone has put together their questions for the town attorney in regards to the battery storage. If you haven't, please submit them, email them to Mary so she can pass them on. If you don't mind, also CC myself and Vice Chair, Ms. Wakefield.
I do have the town attorney scheduled to come for your next regular meeting for that conversation, because we do need to have, she needs direction as well.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that that occurs. So clearly, she wants to be able to do any research necessary, so that way she can be responsive to any of your questions or concerns, and be prepared for that.
Is the data center out?
No.
Is that like a dead?
No, they're still moving forward. And
Is
they've
this-
been paying the fee in accordance to the escrow account with regards to the purchase agreement, so
There has
that's
been
still
some
moving.
issues with
Yeah.
power in some instances in their locations,
Mm,
in the grid.
Yeah.
They're draining the grids.
yeah. But yeah, no,
We're
that,
close to our power plant, so maybe that probably wouldn't be an issue.
yeah. But they are, my understanding, our last communication, they're still proceeding in their process.
Is Miss George still on? She disconnect?
No, she disconnected
Yeah.
about an hour ago.
Yep.
Oh, that long ago, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, she had
Yeah,
to
it was a
step
while
away.
ago. Yep, that's why I didn't.
She had texted me
Recognize
to
her.
tell me when she stepped away, so that way I could record it for the minutes.
I have a question in regards to the battery storage. Weren't we going to have a vote of the town council who actually, were in favor of or not in favor of this project, just to let them know?
We've never had that as an agenda item. I would almost say I don't see a need for taking an opinion one way or another prior to them having a complete application before the siting council.
I would recommend that you would wait until you have a conversation with your attorney
Yep.
on how you take, what your positioning is. That's all part
Yep.
of your negotiation or your process in determining your party status.
Yep.
And that process, that should be done through that conversation with your attorney.
But see, that's where I was looking at some of these other things, like my pointing out that, especially with the noise issues, that it's all rural development zone. Looking at their proposal, they're trying to sell the siting council that, oh, this is an industrial zone because it's adjacent to the addition, the current killingly industrial park. There is on the other side of the road, it is closer to the power line and whatnot, but that's what I was kind of pushing for the attorney, that these guys are making false statements in their document, and they get away with it. So if we have to wait, that's why. They keep getting extensions, and I don't know, I'm frustrated with, I don't know if I need all this nonsense anymore. Yes, I stick my neck out, and it gets bit off too many times. So,
When are the questions due, Jason, for the battery storage?
At our last meeting, I had asked to have them by tonight, but if you don't have them, please get them put together as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I just noticed an email that was actually in my quarantine folder from the town attorney. I saw that today, and I was scrambling. I'm like, I don't have time to, I do have questions.
Right.
And that was part of the whole, me also reviewing, listening to the meeting again today while I was at work.
If you guys can get me your questions by Friday, so that way I can get them all transmitted over to to Ann.
Yeah.
That would be helpful. That would give her some time to do any necessary research before coming to the meeting in February.
Are these questions or requests? Because we kind of already know.
Questions, requests, whatever whatever you want her to look into, concerns that you have,
Yeah.
list them out.
Yep.
And then I can get them to her.
Yep, that way, when she comes next month, she can have had time to formulate responses and make recommendations to how we go forward, what questions can be brought forward to the siting council. Real quick, as far as ordinance and speaking about the noise ordinances, does the council have control over those, or is that through planning and zoning?
Right now, off the top of my head, I'd have to look. I
Okay,
don't have that memorized off the top of my head.
okay.
So let me look at noise ordinance. I don't
Alright.
know who passes that one, to be honest, off the top of my head.
Okay, because that's something that's been brought up to me a couple times, and I forgot to bring that up and find out which way that goes, whether it's us or planning and zoning. So, okay. All right, we'll move on the agenda. Next item up is executive session. We have nothing, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Motion was made by Mr. Grandelsky, seconded by Ms. Barclay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? This meeting is adjourned.